think that's it. I'll also hit the recording button.
Oh.
Guest star is kind of useless. All right. Oh, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna tweet.
You still forget to tweet.
Copy the image. Paste. Okay, fine. I'll let it do it that way. Boom.
This does stream out well. But also, this is the first time looking into Twitch in over 6 months. I logged in last time just to change my name.
Yeah, like, oh god. Me changing my name was a pain in the ass on... Was it Twitch that... Yeah, so... I registered Abigator way before, like 6 months before I wanted to use it. And then got screwed over by the name change policy where even if you delete the account, they hold the name for 6 months. So I had to go by my old name for like 2 years, well, for about 6 months, and then I decided to just jump ship, jump to a different one, and had to wait for another 6 months, so a year total, for them to delete the old handle, even though there was no account on it.
See, Twitch can just be so incredibly useless in difficult times. They're like, I get that, I understand security and whatnot and authentication, but when
They're violating their own policies, though? Like, your public-facing policy is 6 months.
Have you seen Twitches currently, like TOSs, and the drama that's been going around on those?
Have you seen Twitters?
It's a perfect nightmare.
I've got a friend that's trying to get me onto Blue Sky at the moment.
Well, if you get on, let me know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because I've been trying as well.
So they're a queer ally for the trans community, and knowing full well just how sketchy Twitter is for the trans community. So I got the comment of, "You're high on my list for Blue Sky invite codes when they start trickling their way to me." Someone pointed out that trans people are the most at risk on this site, so they should go to the front for the queue for the safer place via the invite codes. So that resonated. So that was really cool.
Ooh, let me
in. Also, is that a catto? I don't know what that means.
That is my cat. That is my cat, Sandstorm.
Oh, okay.
Can't really see her. I'll try to scoot her over. So, without her wanting to move, because she's on her pillow and her blanket. Don't get up, 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 don't get up. So say, oh, look at that.
If they don't want to move, leave the catto. You can't see. Oh wait, no, you can see my cat. You can see what stream sees, so that should be fine. You can see chat as it comes up in the bottom left-hand corner.
I've also popped it onto my laptop, so just cool. So I can watch, because I need to know.
So yeah, basically tonight's whole thing is we wanted to have a chat about the situation of trans rights in Australia and go through the whole landscape of that at the moment, because the situation is kind of flux a little bit. So tonight we've got myself as the streamer and also moderator of Transgender AU, and trans.au is actually one of the other links I need to pull up. except the website's dead. Because, well, of course it is. I haven't put anything on that website.
Oh no.
Charlie
Oh,
Brown
no.
Bob, not Mrs. Please. No. Am not married, so does not apply. But yeah, I've been pretty good. And then we've also got Dragons Are Cats here, who is the creator of the petition in New South Wales to change the birth certificate reform. Which I will actually. I can't press buttons over there. It's this button. So
My hair's itchy.
yeah, so this petition here, with 6,805 signatures, it can only be signed by those that live in New South Wales. Currently, you were born in New South Wales, and the bill will affect you. Get fucked. You can't sign.
Absolutely get fucked. You can't sign it. Even if you were a prior resident in New South Wales, even outside a month, get fucked. Can't touch. Feel there should be allowances, and I would say
if you can't hit this button, you can't sign.
I know, if you can't hit that button, you can't sign. You're just like.
Basically, the idea is that they don't want to allow to get flooded by a request for from Victoria,
Yes,
saying we want to
that's
change
exactly
New
it.
South Wales law, which very valid. Particularly if we look at
now,
because if you don't live there, most of the petitions won't affect you.
Now, in saying this, I do believe that is only due to the fact of it being the New South Wales keyword there, New South Wales government petition for only within that area. So that goes across for the majority of petitions, I believe. I think it's just like the administration thing. So if you go like to another petition, it'll more than likely have that there as well. Why it has that, I guess it's just to, like you said, stop flooding from other states, but also at the same time, it's like it does try to keep it local, and like I understand like data can be skewed in situations such as that. So like in a administrative sense, I don't think it's just not targeted. Like it's not. I don't think it's specifically targeted to trans people or like to people wanting to sign, like due to birth reasons or whatever. It's just is your residence in New South Wales, and that's literally it. Like it's annoying. Yes, absolutely yes.
It largely comes down to 90% of the people that can, that 90% or even more than that, like almost every petition is trying to change New South Wales law that won't affect you if you live in another state.
Yes.
So,
whereas what we're trying to do is, even if you do live in another state, but you were born with a New South Wales birth certificate, because that thing follows you till death. And that can only be changed once these changes are like implemented. So if you do go over to a state like Victoria, yes, you can get a gender recognition certificate that you can also hand in as well if you do have a New South Wales birth certificate. But at the same time, no changes itself will be made to your New South Wales birth certificate, which is so incredibly frustrating because I know probably about 6 trans people who do live in Victoria who are like currently in this situation as well.
The New South Wales legislation as it stands is also really hard even if you go through the surgery. So currently the whole situation in New South Wales is if you want to update your birth certificate to change your gender marker, you have to go through surgery. Can you get away with hysterectomy or an orchiectomy? Would that work? It's
You
still
can
several
get,
$1,000s. Don't get me wrong, but
oh yeah. Like for an orchiectomy, you are looking between
about $2,000.
at a oh, it's more about like 5 to 6 for an orchiectomy, and then
Okay.
also put in like add on to the top of that consultation fees, medical, and the rest of it, yada yada yada. So like that would between 5 and 12, and then at the same time, hysterectomy, orchiectomy are allowed as well.
Yeah.
And then there's just general like gender reassignment surgery as well. So SRS, and then as per New South Wales legislation, you do have to go through and get 2 doctors, assuming one is your general doctor that you've been seeing throughout this entire time, who also has conducted your surgery, and get them to sign, get them to inspect, review, and affirm in a statement your gender in a procedure that you've undertaken. They then have to go and get a stat deck on that, so statutory declaration, and then you have to do the same process with another doctor, and they then have to do the exact same thing. You need to go in there, they need to inspect, assess, review, and get a signed stat deck. Now,
It has to be a justice of the peace.
yes, so
Because New South Wales law is very different than what we have in Victoria, because what we have in Victoria is a pharmacist can sign it, a police officer can sign it, so many other careers can sign it, and in the case of this, it's just a justice of the peace, I believe.
Has to be a justice of the peace.
Which is so stupid. But yeah, it's currently going well. With 6,800 signatures, it does close in 3 weeks.
Oh god, it does.
Hang on, no,
Does it?
1 month, 3 weeks. Never mind.
Yes. Don't worry, I had the exact same thing happen to me the other night. Actually, last night when I was on the bus to work, and I was like, oh my god, Armored Core 6 is coming out in a month. I'm so excited. But then I looked and realized it was not July, and it's currently June. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Now I'm sad.
For me, I've got that same thing with Starfield. Like, it's 2 months out. I want to play it, but it's so far. But yeah, we've got this petition. We've also had, at a federal level, we had this petition go through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th most signed signature in the country, e-petition in the country's history. Trying to get gender affirming surgery covered by Medicare. We actually had a response to this, and it's not great.
I have not seen the response, so this is going to be welcome to watch. Fuck.
Look at the name on the top.
Please don't.
Greg Hunt. So this was released under Scott Morrison's government. Unfortunately. So it's very much not good. Basically, if there are no specific MBS items, and as such, we also don't have any requests from any doctors, and doctors have to make the request. It needs to be assessed by MSAC, the Medical Services Advisory Committee, which is an independent expert advisory group, but they get petitioned, basically, and no application has been made to them by any surgeon. So we get left in the dust. For example, like, for the costs of stuff, I will actually pull that up on a different screen, drive.google.com, just because I want to double check like how much of this is I can actually release publicly, because it is personal. Yeah, no, that's fine.
I wonder if I can ask, because I'm seeing my doctor tomorrow. I'm like, I wonder if I can ask my doctor to be like, hey, look, there's this like federal petition going around. Do you want to like send a letter and say I would like to endorse this? And
Ah.
Risk Connect. We've been a great ally.
Hold your horses, because I'm getting to a different one. So this is my full breakdown of costs. This quote is a little old. So $22,000, $25,000 total out of pocket. That includes what I paid Medibank in in like fees or whatever, like what I paid for them to cover me. Now, that was $3,000 from May of 2020. It was supposed to be until January of 2022. Escalating to gold in October because surgery was in January, but the health system basically collapsed. So I escalated to gold actually way too, like 2 months too early, because I didn't actually get surgery until the end of March. So I had an extra couple of costs there that weren't expected. The anaesthetist was quoted $3,700, and that's not what I actually paid. I paid $27. Surgeon's fees, 16 grand with Ives. Ives is no longer practicing, so that cost was also 18,000 by the date of my surgery.
Oh my god.
My quote was from December of 2020. And he just honored it, which was really good. I had to pay Masada $750, which was my excess for private health insurance. I had to buy something to put between my knees when I got home, because I'm a side sleeper. And you need to keep your legs separated. Or shit starts to close. No. Discharge medications of 105. Medibank again for another 2 months of premiums of $402, because it was $201 a month at that point. Electrolysis cost me more than $1,000, and I didn't get that done in time because of the pandemic. Basically, I had appointments booked, they got cancelled. Appointments booked, they got cancelled. So that's frustrating. $190 to get my psychologist's letters signed, because you had to get a psychologist and a psychiatrist. It was another $1,000 just for the psychiatrist's letter. All up, $25,000 with rebates of $622 for the anaesthetist of the $2,700 and $2,435 for the surgeon out of the $16,000. So all up, $3,000 back, bringing the total cost down to $22,200. Also note that $3,000 for Medibank, very good, because it brought the costs down that I had to even out of pocket by $14,300.
Good lord.
That was the 7-day hospital stay. So just the hospital stay would have cost me another $14,000 if I didn't have private health. So worth it, but maybe don't start it until you're about a year out, or your costs will build. 25 sessions of electrolysis. Didn't. They tried to put me in wherever they could, but we got screwed over by the pandemic. I didn't put into this my costs for Kenacome or Betnovate, which are certain ointments that you should be using. I didn't cover those costs because I couldn't calculate them. Or lubricant, which you also need because dilation schedules. So that's all in there. Now, going back to the petition. This petition, 3307. This is cool, but I hate TERFs because this is a thing. Page 5. Is it still here? Is it page 4 now? Where'd it go?
Did it get removed? Has it gone to page 6?
Ah, it's here. TERFs suck. Gender affirming care should not be covered by Medicare. It already looks like this has been fraud because it was
Really? And it closes
53,000
tonight.
at lunchtime. It closes today though. They've got to do a lot of work to beat the trans supportive one, which is 148,000.
I don't think it's going to work.
Not without massive fraud and basically like I don't know how they do it. So TERF, I'll actually spell it out for you. So TERF, spelled that way, trans exclusionary radical feminist. I wouldn't argue that they're a feminist. Just saying. I'm gonna put overlays up top. Dangerism, thank you for the follow as well. But yeah, this is the thing. This closes at midnight tonight. They've had a month, and they can't. And it's gone up almost 6,000 since lunchtime today. I honestly don't see it going anywhere further, because it is. Yeah, it's gone up. What, 5,000, 6,000 today? It's not going to happen.
Definitely.
How can one be a feminist when it doesn't include all women? Exactly! It's why I don't consider them feminists. But we'll close that down. So, yeah, my full costs. I can link all of these documents. Actually.
But, like, even just seeing the costs just right there, like, when you said that even some of the costs, I was just like racking my brain, like, okay, how the fuck would I even put together the funds capable of it? And I'm in a quite secure job as well, but still, the cost of living has me crying when half of my pay is going directly to rent, and I'm just like, god damn.
Yeah.
So saving up for that, and
it took me years on my wage.
Yeah, I feel like I'm at the moment, one of quite lucky to be in the role that I'm in. And I know that there is a lot of queer and gender diverse people who do not have this access or even a working minimum wage. And
that's why we need birth certificate reform.
Yeah.
Because I can afford it. But I set myself back years. If I didn't pay for surgery, I would own a house right now.
You would. At the moment, to just have in New South Wales, to just change that legal marker on your birth certificate, if you're in New South Wales, you'd have to go through all of that, to then get all of that looked at and checked off, to then be able to apply and get that changed.
It's too much of a hassle to do the documentation side of it alone, even having had the surgery. I've got friends that have had surgery 2 years ago and still can't get the paperwork signed.
And that's the thing, it's incredibly unreliable. If it was just you, if you as a person were able to go and get the documentation yourself, to then take it to be signed by JFP, I think that would be an easier method. But no,
for sure.
the doctor has to go out and do it themselves.
Which is not going to happen.
What's a doctor's schedule like these days? If they're not doing it in their time off, they're not doing it at all. So you either have to go in yourself and become a justice of peace. And then is that allowed? I don't know.
No, it's not. It wouldn't be allowed because you can't sign anything regarding yourself. You can't, half the time you're not even supposed to get family to sign it for you. So yeah, that's just part of the costs. It's also just updating your birth certificate alone. There's a lot of people that in the trans community that can't afford that. Just the paperwork cost. Because birth certificate marriages in Victoria, what's the cost to update a birth certificate these days? Change your record of sex?
For mine in New South Wales, let me check on mine.
$131. with a name, but they combined the cost so that you can do a change of name at the same time. In other states, you have to do them separately. I think it's...
Good lord.
Where was I looking that up? Was it Tasmania? Yeah, a change of... Please note, change of name is a separate process in Tasmania.
Hmm.
I was looking this up the other day because it came up on Reddit.
So, in total for mine, for the change of name application, that cost me $135.
Mm-hmm.
For the change of name certificate, that was $49. Registered mail was $11, and an official birth certificate was another $49. There was a change. There was also an application for. I could also apply for a change of an updated change of birth certificate as well, but that also cost an extra $139 that I didn't have at the time and had to get later. So in total, it cost me $300.
This is just for your change of name. You have to do this again. For change of gender. Ow.
So then, after I pay 30, depending on what it is, $20,000 to $50,000 for surgery, depending. I then have to apply and then spend like another $200 to $500. Well, not even $500, like another $200 to $300 into just updating the change of name, the change of gender, and like they say, oh yeah, the costs are fine, but then they put on top of the registered mail, the little birth certificate, the official certificates, and then you're just like, okay, I'm poor now.
They're nickel and diming you. Like ours is $131 and postage, because you have to send back your original birth certificate, and you damn well better be sure you want to send that back registered.
Yeah, I didn't have to send mine back, but I did receive like my new certificate as well. Like
They won't start processing until they receive your original in Victoria.
Wow. See, no, I don't.
That being said, Victoria does have this. So this is the ID change support fund, where Transgender Victoria has a fund of money that they can. So if you are experiencing financial hardship and can't afford the $131 to submit to change your birth certificate, they can help you with that. There's both reimbursement and upfront payment assistance. So there. But the idea is that they can help you update your birth certificate. I don't know what the equivalent would be in New South Wales. You don't have a TGV, do you? Everything goes to ACON in New South Wales by my...
Yeah, the closest thing we have in New South Wales is ACON, but while they offer support in other ways, they definitely do not have the capacity to do something such like that. Just give like funds to be able to support like that. Like they're there for counselling. They're able to like help you get through times and like organize everything, but in the end, it's not somewhere they just go, here's the financial support and backing for you.
Yeah, so because TransHub was created by ACON, I don't consider it the be all and end all. Because
I consider it a nice spot to start into researching, but to not use it as the be all end all. If anything, like when I started the petition as well and started looking into it, I was looking through TransHub as well, but then some. I get that some of the wording was used to keep it quite simple and keep it quite factual, but once I took a look at the legislation, it was a little bit blurred. Like I was, well, not blurred, but it was just like, okay, that's kind of getting down to the tail end of it, but at the same time, it's like softening the words so that, hey, you can do this, but be noticed that, well, legislation is also very hard to decipher at times as well.
Yeah.
If you've never seen a piece of legislation before and then go and look at legislation, you're like, what the fuck is this?
So one of the biggest problems with this is it's very largely New South Wales focused, and other states don't have an equivalent. Which is actually where I come in. Hi, trans.au. The idea
plug.
And plug, yeah. So trans.au is a project that I am starting on next week. Really in earnest. The idea behind it is to create something similar to this Find a Doc. So I want to start listing. Hey, look, there's a Victorian. And a Tasmanian.
Hey, yo.
Weird.
Just on the border.
Yeah, and then there's a couple in New South Wales, but Northern Territory, South Australia, Western Australia, there's nothing. So my intention is to try to create that as a list and then make a national list, but not just of GPs and sexual health physicians and all of those, but making it so much more than that. I want to include like community groups. So linking you into community support groups. Just listing off a couple that I know of through a leadership program that I was part of recently. Lion Wangaratta, Rainbow Ballarat, Rainbow Geelong, or Geelong Rainbow, sorry. There's a whole bunch of these queer support networks and queer networks that just exist around your, like, where you live. Every area has something nearby, right? And this will never list those community groups because it can't. It's a little bit too commercial because it has to be.
Essentially, Acon is here to, and TransHub is here to sell a service, and at the end of the day, while being non-profit, they are still a business.
Yeah,
but that's the world we live in,
and that's why I'm trying to do this out. Like, I'm currently funding this out of my own pocket. If it takes off, I am actually fucked. Because I don't have corporate sponsorship. I don't have any of that. If I will probably end up making a Patreon or something, and then I'm gonna have to pay taxes on that because I already have to pay taxes on everything I make through Twitch.
And then you can, at the end of the day, you can start it up as a business and get an ABN and be like, here.
I already have an ABN. Thank you, Twitch. Twitch mandated that I get an ABN.
I forgot about that.
So anything that I make through like donations or bits or advertising revenue or whatever through Twitch, I have to pay tax on. That being said,
I remember those days.
Yeah, it was confusing as hell for a while, and I've done work for the ATO. It's weird because it wasn't clear.
No.
Now, that being said, I pay tax on this. However, above chat you will see a charity thing for Transcend Australia. Transcend is actually, I have a button for this. Transcend is a really cool organization that is working towards a world where transgender, diverse, non-binary children are embraced and given the opportunity to thrive and flourish. You can find out more about them at the link in chat. Any donation to Transcend above $2, even through this method, is tax deductible. So put it on your taxes, and you will get back about, I think, whatever you would have paid in tax. So it's maybe 30 cents on the dollar or whatever it is, right? Depending on where your tax bracket sits. But yeah, you can get some money back with your tax return for that. So say I donate $100, I might get $30 back. So I'm still out $70, but hey, it works out well, particularly at this time of year when we're so close to the end of financial season.
Oh God, I don't want to think about that.
That being said, don't donate if you cannot afford to. It's only ever what you can afford to donate, because we're all going through the cost of living crisis, and putting people out and making it so that you can't afford to eat is definitely not recommended.
Prioritize your survival.
Exactly. So, yeah, we've got all of that to consider. New South Wales in regards... Hey, men. So in New South Wales, we do have that petition that has 6,800 signatures. 6,858. Sorry, I hadn't refreshed the page.
Ooh, it's gone up a little bit.
But we've also got Alex. So Alex is an independent member of state parliament from Sydney, who's also gay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so Alex Greenwich is I would like to say does a really good job representing the people of Sydney, because that's his electorate, like directly in Sydney. His office is on Oxford Street, so it's literally queer central.
It's on the Mardi Gras route, that would mean.
That is correct. Like, not where like the road turns, like veers off, but like at the very, very start of like Oxy, near to Bergen. But nevertheless, so Alex Greenwich has come out with his equality bill. So in 2020, he actually moved a motion in the New South Wales Parliament to have to actually act on the right or to allow trans people to basically have self ID, to have more rights, to be protected as well. And that motion was unanimously supported in the New South Wales Parliament in 2020, mind you.
Under Berejiklian?
Under Gladys, unanimously.
Okay.
So the entirety, in 2020, the entirety of the Legislative Council floor said, Alex, yes, you're right. Let's trans rights. Then Angus Taylor, who is a New South Wales South Coast, who I think he's still in the job. He might be. At the time, he was, I think he was the environmental minister for...
yeah, he's still on the job.
Yeah. So he in himself said that yeah, at the moment, the current legislation in New South Wales doesn't align with federal human rights laws and is barbaric, which was great coming from a liberal member of parliament.
That's not what I was expecting from him.
No, neither was I when I read it. I was just like, I had to double check it. I read it up. And I was just like,
But you said Angus Taylor, and I was preparing for some bullshit.
Yeah, no. When I saw it as well, I thought the same thing. But when I saw that, I was just like, surprise ally.
Yeah.
Plot twist. But yeah, the fact that it passed unanimously in 2020 is a good sign. What Alex is currently doing now with his quality bill is it's one bill that contains amendments and changes to two different acts and an implementation of one new, essentially like implementation of one new act with a couple of changes to another act as well. So he's
It's an
bundling.
omnibus. It's changing 3 things.
Yeah, so he's
Instead of just one.
trying to pack it in one bill, package 3 different things together in one move and one motion. Big ordeal. And in the New South Wales Parliament, Alex is a fairly influential. Well, as a member of the crossbench, he is heavily relied on as well to help make or break situations too. So he's also I believe, the assistant speaker. So like not the person who usually always speaks, but like when the Speaker of the House is out and about, he then will become Speaker, which is good.
So it looks like Labor doesn't hold a majority in New South Wales Parliament.
No,
It's in a minority government.
Just got in the skin of their teeth.
So they need supply from
Correct.
the Greens or Independents, and that's why Alex is so critical to their legislation right now.
Yes, that is right. So when it comes down to it as well, having, especially for being such a high profile politician, Alex Greenwich has been front and center across so many queer events and fighting for LGBT rights as well, always condemning like any violent actions or protests or like any vile shit that goes on against the community as well, which is fantastic. He's working in his own way to really get down to the business end of things as well, to make sure that businesses are also providing for the queer community and also giving political advisory and like working with businesses to like make things more inclusive. He's just a staunch gay man doing the best he can in like a cishet parliament. It's great.
So the changes that he's pushing for are birth certificate reform, so self-ID, what Monica's petition is about. We've also got the intersex surgery ban, because, yes,
Good.
we shouldn't be operating on children, they say, completely ignoring the intersex kids.
Completely ignoring we're going to do it anyway over here.
That's also legislation in the ACT currently, where the intersex ban has taken place. Removal of targeted discrimination, including in schools, and a ban on conversion therapy. Conversion therapy bans are currently law in Victoria, Queensland. A lot of European countries are starting to really push that forward, even with the attacks that we're currently seeing across the queer community at the moment, which, if you haven't been paying attention, has been particularly bad this year. This year more than any other. We've seen groups like Binary Australia. So Binary Australia is, thank you, Kiralee Smith, notorious for being a TERF. But Binary Australia is a rebrand from an anti-same-sex marriage group under Kiralee Smith. So it's been a shit show trying to get anything through. That being said, Queensland did just pass birth certificate reform recently. I don't know when that takes effect, but it is important. If I look at the Transgender AU subreddit, Twitter account, which, yes, I run. Yeah, I retweeted so much when I saw this on June 15th. So, oh no, that's New Zealand. New Zealand had
Mm.
passed the legislation for self ID as well.
Yeah, just a couple of days after Queensland, which was really surprisingly quick. I had heard nothing in regards to happening, so I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was the day after it passed in Queensland. It was law in New Zealand. So self ID is allowing you to update your birth certificate with the gender that you want, that you identify as, right? So in my circumstance, I was assigned male at birth, so my birth certificate originally said male. Self ID would allow me to change that to female and not have to deal with some of the onerous bullshit that has come along with it. For example, which is what they're currently pushing for and why they're trying to push for it so hard in New South Wales right now, is the fact that in New South Wales you currently require to go through very expensive gender reassignment surgery in order to be able to change the document. So it might cost you $300 apparently, which is utter bullshit, to change the document. But you can't do that in New South Wales. You can do that for your name, you can't do that for your gender marker. And so where was that? Here. The costs breakdown is 22 grand for me to go through that process. This is my costs. I don't need that because I'm in Victoria. I didn't need to get the surgery, but I wanted to. Mind you that the law passed in Victoria about a year before I went for surgery. It passed in like 21. And with the pandemic and everything else like that, trying to get paperwork signed was a shit show. But we got there. But yeah, it might cost you $300 to update the document, plus another 20 grand for surgery fees. That's not happening. So as such, we are trying to get rid of particularly this bullshit cost from New South Wales, bringing New South Wales into the 21st century, because every other state already has it.
At the moment as well, with the difference between allowing self-ID and keeping the old system of requiring gender reassignment surgery, it's not only the cost, it's also the emotional toil and just the amount of time that one can spend within the medical system going through these processes, through all the consultation, therapy sessions. You could be in this cycle for a good, 2 to 5 years, sometimes longer. At the moment as well, the idea around allowing someone to self-determine their own legal gender is an affirmation process that drastically increases the mental health of trans and non-binary and gender non-conforming people.
Yeah.
It takes away that intense, traumatic, and well, I'm not going to say heartbreaking, but like it is a traumatic event where you are having to go through it. You have to endure through it. And not only that, you are sterilizing as well. So we basically have to come to the terms with what we want to do in our life, because like at the same time, like we take, as trans people, we do take precautions to future proof, like if we do want to have kids down the line, and even that in itself is expensive.
Freezing eggs or banking sperm.
Yeah, it's fucking costly monthly.
I never did it.
I did it. I did it. I missed 2 payments, and then I had to catch up, and then like I was super behind, and now I'm just like, can I maintain paying this month? This month to month of like $250 to keep that like
Monthly?
each banking as well cost me like $500.
Not worth. Who did you go through?
I went through it with oh god.
It wasn't Janaea, was it?
No. It was in the heart of Sydney.
So,
In my favorite political terminology, I'll take that on notice. But yeah, no, I can't remember who it was with. Oh, I should know it. It's on the tip of my head. BRB. Because now I need to know.
so I'm just going through the wiki that we have on Transgender AU at the moment because, yeah, it's non-mandatory. I know that the costs with Janaea went up. And I can't even find it. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. $295 for freezing. Oh, that's for sperm freezing. Yeah, and then 6 months storage costs $295. You got ripped off. No offense.
And I went to 3 different clinics, and they're all around the same. Like, mind you, this was like COVID time as well.
Yeah.
So I know I got ripped, but like Rainbow Fertility, that was it. That is a queer friendly fucking like business.
That's
like,
ripped. That's getting ripped off because like I've got Janaea and IVF Australia, and they're both coming in less than that.
Yeah, Rainbow Fertility fucked me. But at least I have storage.
I respect all trans people, and when my friend went MTF, I supported her more than her own family. That's actually really cool. I love that.
Thank you.
I sat down with a young person. I don't know whether they were trans, but they were asking about hormones. Because I went to an event and I got introduced as the trans woman that was there as an out and proud member of the community.
Yay.
Living my best life, which was the entire point. So I went up, introduced myself, said, "Hi, I'm a trans woman. I transitioned 4 years ago. I'm just living my best life." But yeah, this kid came, sat down, and was just like, "How does this all work? Because I will probably need to know this." And it was just one of the best conversations because you can't be what you can't see, and you can't ask questions of those that you don't know. So
if you're not exposed to it, how can you know? You need to be able to at least, if you can't get it directly from the horse's mouth, like if it's just being exposed to like trans issues, and even like before I even transitioned, like I only knew so much, and since the beginning, I have learned so much. It's been incredible.
So yeah, this is my wiki. I'm actually going to be moving this to TransAU. Dangerousism says, "My friend recently told me she's trans. Where we live, we have to put a plan to ban treatment for trans people. I don't live in a very LGBT friendly place, so all my research is online." You're in the US, yeah, Dangerousism? And if so, do you mind answering what state you live in? Because
if you do not, that's perfectly fine as well.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, you got to deal with that bullshit. Fuck DeSantis.
Okay. I would I know this is probably a massive stretch to say, and not everyone will be able to do it as well because it is the hot zone at the moment. But if your friend can move from Florida,
Highly
that would
recommend.
be the highly recommend. That'll be the drastic be all end all. Unfortunate, yes, but with the current political climate within the US, it would be the most advised, especially if it's within the last, if they've only just come out recently, or even planning to, or looking into it, or they're just having that conversation and starting that. The reality, the gender euphoria is one thing, and we don't want to dismiss that, but
Yeah.
also as trans people, especially within the US, and with the current climate, we do need to take in the fact of, okay, maybe now's not the safest time to. Safety and security does always come first. So just let your friend be aware of that. She
So,
applied to Washington State and wants to move in there. She has been self-taking hormones. Oh, okay. Oh.
so DIY then. That's perfectly fine, and that's probably the safest option in Florida right now. That being said, whenever they try to ban hormone therapy, it gets overturned by the federal courts in the US. Thank God for the federal court system. That being said, this is a really cool map done by Erin in the Morning. Erin in the Morn, or Erin Reed, is a really cool Twitter user. Who is she's currently engaged to, is it Zoe Zephyr?
Yes, that's the one.
Who's the trans, um, who's the trans member of what state legislature was that?
She's in Montana. Yeah.
Montana. Yeah, Montana is considered a red state. So, wait. This one's Montana, I think. I don't know US states, so sorry, I'm Australian. We don't get education on the US. I think this is Montana, and I think this is Missouri. Michigan. I think. But basically, yeah, Zoe Zephyr is a trans member of the state legislature. And Erin and Zoe are cute, dating. And yeah, this is Erin's map of trying to keep up with legislation across the country. But also, she's really. It is not. That's Oregon. That's Idaho. There's no border here.
There's that small little section, like no man's land.
That's it. That's.
But still at the same time.
Yeah, whatever. It's part of Idaho. But yeah, she keeps up with this and has a really cool blog. I highly recommend it if you're in the US. Florida. Yeah, Equality Florida has issued a travel advisory, basically saying do not travel to Florida. That's concerning. Gender affirming care was banned, but I think that's been overturned. I do love the fact that DeSantis got told to basically get fucked by Disney. Thank you. Like, Disney's not great, but anyone that's telling DeSantis, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Oh, look, I'm for that as well.
So, yeah. The US is kind of a categorical shit show. So, when it comes to trans rights and protections by state, yeah, surgery is still a requirement in New South Wales and Norfolk Island. And non-binary is not recognised in WA.
Which is something we're currently looking to have looked at and also fought for within our petition here in New South Wales. So it's also just looking into allowing those gender markers to come through and those the acknowledgement of non-binary people, because like even bisexuals don't technically have proper protection in New South Wales here.
We want to cover that next, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so the Western Australian method for gender affirming or self ID is really fucking weird. So Western Australia has this whole thing where if you want to update your gender marker in Western Australia, you don't need therapy. You don't need surgery. You can just get HRT, but you have to go through a panel. You have to submit like a whole pack to a panel, and then the panel will make the decision for you, which it's weird. Also, hi CFC. So yeah, it's just messy, right? We're going to change tact a little bit and go look at anti-discrimination laws. We have coverage here from the Commonwealth, states and the states and territories as well. So, are lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals protected against discrimination? Now, they're covered by the Commonwealth. So, theoretically, this doesn't really apply, but New South Wales doesn't have particular rules for them for bisexual folks in New South Wales. But if it's just being attacked for being like in a same-sex relationship, you're covered. So, a little bit weird. Now, this website and this post is made by a Twitter user named Alistair Laurie, who works for the PIAC. Yeah, the Public Interest Advocacy Centre. Yeah, so PIAC. Are trans people covered by discrimination? Yes. It's not to the same extent as the trans community are being attacked, but yes, they are. The Christian groups in Sydney. You know of them, Monica?
Oh yeah. The lovely Christian Lives Matter. We also had
No.
Christian Forgiveness Ministry. So that was fun.
It's largely anti-trans, but hang on. There's a reason why I want to do this. Fuck you, Media Watch.
Oh yeah. I didn't get to watch it as it was happening because I was working, but I did see the shitstorm of Twitter that did follow.
Yeah, so Media Watch is currently posting about covering the other side to the trans debate. It's not a debate because it's human rights. Human rights are not debated.
Though on that, they do say, oh, we're here to deliver a neutral stance, but also then just like leans into the telling the other side of the story, and it's just really dumb.
All right. Do you mind if we watch this?
Oh, go for it, yeah.
This was an event for queer people. It wasn't trans specific. Out of Wangaratta. It was called Rainbow Ball. It was specifically targeted at 12 to 24-year-olds. that were queer.
We started investigating this story earlier this month when we got word that the Rainbow Ball in Wangaratta in northeast Victoria had been shut down right at the last minute because of concerns for the safety of those attending. It was a ball for 12 to 24-year-olds, and it was first established back in 2019, basically by the LGBTIQ plus groups in the area who wanted to have a big inclusive celebration for anybody who wanted to attend. And back in 2019, it was a really tricky event for organisers to get off the ground. They had to navigate hesitant councils, tricky local politics. It is a traditionally conservative area, but fast forward 4 years and it's been a huge success. The councils are now on board and helping to fund it, and this event had been a sellout. But what happened was, in the days leading up to this event, the organisers and councils started receiving really violent threats targeted at individuals from a group they say called the National Socialist Network, and this is a neo-Nazi group. Now, the council sought advice from the police, who were willing to put on extra security for the event, but ultimately the decision was taken by the council to cancel it because they were more worried about rumours that people from this far-right group had actually purchased tickets, so they felt like they couldn't guarantee the safety of those attending. But in investigating this story, it's become clear that it's not an isolated incident. Multiple councils across regional and inner-city areas have been forced to shut down drag storytime events at local libraries because of an online backlash. Even surf life saving clubs in the Illawarra, south of Sydney, were recently targeted by a local conspiracy theorist who was urging his followers to hit up the clubs because they were taking part in Pride Week celebrations. The threats were of such a serious nature that the Thirroul Surf Life Saving Club, for example, actually cancelled its Nippers event one weekend because of concerns for safety. Now, New South Wales Police were notified and thankfully the threats amounted to nothing. But I think what we can see from these examples, and they're pretty recent examples, is that there certainly is an increasing trend of these events being targeted.
So if there is an uptick in this kind of activity, who then is behind it?
Yeah, well, we've spoken to experts like Lydia Khalil from the Lowy Institute, and she says there has been an uptick in activity from conspiracy theorists, far-right groups, self-described Christian rights groups who are targeting councils and grassroots organisations because they're simply easier to access than, say, a state government or a federal government. Now, in terms of their agenda, it's wide and varied, but in this specific case, it appears to be very clearly an anti-trans, anti-gay rights agenda. One expert has suggested that it's a backlash against social change, and those behind it are often disillusioned, disaffected and very vulnerable to disinformation. So that is the suggestion of who is behind this sort of, emerging, increasing campaign. In terms of the councils being targeted, the advice for them is to make very clear statements of their values and what they're willing to stick up for, but also not to necessarily back down. It is obviously a very complex risk assessment that they have to make, but the warning is, in giving in to extremist demands, it basically makes marginalised communities feel even more marginalised. So there is a hope that, given this is getting some coverage now, people are aware of it, that councils will be able to take a stronger stand in future.
So that's what we're talking about, right? Conspiracy theorists, far-right groups, Christian rights groups for some reason. I will raise the hand and say I'm a Christian. I don't necessarily think that what they're doing is very Christian, because it's an oxymoron to be a hateful Christian. Kind of defeats the purpose of anything that Jesus taught, but yeah. The conspiracy theories around, like, trans rights are particularly, like, all trans people are pedophiles, that kind of rhetoric. It's not accurate in the slightest, because, like, if we look at, or drag performers, for example, the drag performer bullshit is odd. It's extreme. We're seeing literal Nazis rocking up to drag storytime events. Or there was a anti-trans protest on the steps of the Victorian Parliament a couple of months ago, just before Trans Day of Visibility. And a group of Nazis showed up, throwing Sieg Heils and shit from the steps of Parliament. That was something that we had to deal with. It was a protest under the guise... Sorry, this cough is killing me.
It's all good.
It's more than a month
that
old.
was-
But yeah, it was literal Nazis on the steps showing up to this event that was supposed to be called Let Women Speak. It was supposed to be a feminist protest. But it wasn't feminist. It was very much just anti-trans. And that's all that Posey Parker, Kelly J. Keane, who's some TERF from the UK, came to speak about. She's been demonetized on YouTube
Yeah.
now.
She's been demonetized. She's also very anti-abortion and contraceptive as well. And that's also the next facet that they seem to be leaning into as well. Going back to anti-abortion laws and anti-contraceptives. So they're starting to lean towards that too.
Yeah, that's actually a really common thing is a number of like anti-trans groups are already pivoting for anti-abortion, which is stupid. There was this really cool video. See if I can find it. This. Oh, I don't want the MSNBC. I want the fucking this one.
Video of preacher Phil Snyder giving a speech on gay rights.
Okay, so Phil Snyder. I know what I'm looking for.
Good evening. My name is the Reverend Dr. Phil Snyder. I was born and raised in Springfield, Missouri, and I stand before you this evening in support of this ordinance. Warns man in overstepping the boundary lines God has drawn by making special rights for gays and lesbians, has taken another step in the direction of inviting the judgment of God upon our land.
This guy
This step
sounds
of gay
really
rights is but
homophobic.
another stepping stone toward the
But I love
immorality and
his
lawlessness that will be characteristic of the last days.
Can you hear this, Monica?
This ordinance represents a denial of all that we believe
No, but I'm
in,
going
and
to
no
mute
one should
myself so I
force
can watch
it
it on
on
stream.
us.
Oh.
It's not that we don't care about homosexuals, but it's that our rights will be taken away. And unchristian views will be forced on us and our children, for we will be forced to go against our personal morals. Outside government agents are endeavoring to disturb God's established order. It is not in line with the Bible. Do not let people lead you astray. The liberals leading this movement do not believe the Bible any longer, but every good, substantial, Bible-believing, intelligent, Orthodox Christian can read the Word of God and know what is happening is not of God. When you run into conflict with God's established order, you have trouble. You do not produce harmony. You produce destruction and trouble, and our city is in the greatest danger that it has ever been in its history. The reason is that we have gotten away from the Bible of our forefathers. You see, the right of segregation, hold on. The right of segregation is clearly established by the Holy Scriptures, both by precept and example.
1 minute.
I'm sorry, I brought the wrong notes with me this evening. I've borrowed my argument from the wrong century. It turns out what I've been reading to you this whole time are direct quotes from white preachers from the 1950s and the 1960s, all in support of racial segregation, All I have done is simply take out the phrase racial integration and substituted it with the phrase gay rights. I guess the arguments I've been hearing around Springfield lately sounded so similar to these that I got them confused. I hope you will not make the same mistake. I hope you will stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
That was in 2012. But the entire
Really
idea. Huh?
I was just going to say, really coming in strong with the these facts and just how over the last 50 so years, it's just literally shifting from one to another. It's the same tired rhetoric repackaged in hate, in bigotry, and just wanting to find someone to loathe.
I'd like to point out that this was an anti-same-sex marriage.
How long ago was that again?
That was
How long
2012.
ago was that? 2012? That was 2012?
And it's the same arguments that are being used now for trans rights.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same It was the same arguments that were being used for segregation, women's voting rights. Won't someone think of the children? That argument gets brought up in every single one of these cases.
I always just think to The Simpsons at that point. It's just like...
That's the point.
They scream, oh, for the children, but then again, if you remove that gender affirming care, or even just the conversation, if you deny the conversation, that the health of that child will drastically decline, because they will not feel, their sense of self will not align with their external presentation. And so they'll be constantly throwing up a wall of emotion in which you can't penetrate. And they will either grow resentful or they will grow spiteful. And then at the same time, when you say, oh, my child doesn't want to speak with me, they've been brainwashed, and then blame it on an entire other community when it's just your actions that have caused all this, just because you don't want to have that talk. It's like, again, it narrows down to that same conversation of, I don't want, all right, this is like a vague segue. I don't want teachers teaching my kids about sex in school, but I'll do it. And then something happens and it's like, oh, why aren't there school programs about this? And then it's just like,
They'll do it. We've already got schools in Australia and the US that do not teach sex ed.
yeah.
Or they teach abstinence sex ed. That's not sex ed.
That's not sex
That
ed.
encourages kids to get pregnant.
Mm.
Because kids don't understand what the fuck contraceptive is, which is necessary.
Like, even when I was in school, it was
I should
literally
have flagged this
some-
as sexual content.
it was literally some 50-year-old PE teacher in front of an entire class of 16-year-olds who got out a condom and a banana and said, pretty much it's this.
Yeah. Do you know who Ruben K is?
Oh, yeah.
So
Don't worry, I've been following them.
yeah, Ruben K, for those that aren't aware, is a drag performer. This is Ruben K in drag. Love the guy. Was recently on Q&A. Q&A is a panel show in Australia done by the ABC. So the news articles I was showing before were from the ABC. One of those videos I was just showing about the Rainbow Ball, that was the ABC.
Here is my opinion on that, on his segment on the project and just how I felt about it.
I don't want to cover his project thing. I want to cover his other segment in
Oh,
Q&A.
yeah, that's fine. Here's my thoughts on his time on the project. I get where he was coming from. Shut the fuck up, Wally. However, unfortunately, it did put a lot of, at that time, especially within New South Wales too, during the whole thing out in Sydney's West, where there was an attack by a whole group, it did put a lot more trans people at risk, and we're still feeling the effects of that because it did, while quality joke, but it did stoke flames. And I'm like,
Sure.
I was like, why?
Sure.
But like, absolutely love him.
I'm gonna show this video from Ruben K, who is a drag performer, was a panelist on Q&A and is really interesting. Tiff Twinkle, hi, welcome. Tiff Twinkle, sorry. Welcome to the stream. We're discussing trans rights. So I'm going to show this now. It's a couple of minutes, but it's one of the most direct, and it really addresses the point of, won't someone think about the children? So, Monica, if you want to put yourself on mute, we'll watch this now.
Please do.
Because I think you'll appreciate this bit.
Drag Queen Storytime does something important. It opens kids' eyes to a world that is diverse and reflective of reality, and then it offers queer kids an opportunity to see themselves. And if queer kids don't see themselves represented in this world, how can they envision a future with them in it? 48.1% of trans and gender diverse kids attempt suicide in their life. So when people say, oh, we care about the children, they don't care about that statistic. They don't care that 16% of kids live in poverty in this country. They don't care that 1 in 4 children in this country is on the brink of illiteracy. There is confusion here in society or in the public forum that drag and being trans are the same thing. They are not mutually exclusive, but they are very different things. And then we get down to what this is really about, which is Drag Queen Storytime. And Drag Queen Storytime is simply a drag queen stepping into a library in a sparkly outfit, reading a story and singing some songs to kids. That's it.
It's not the full video that I really want to show, because one of the other points that he makes during that spiel is, if we define drag is putting on some makeup and a sparkly outfit and a costume, and that's it. So by that definition, everyone on this panel is in drag.
I really love that reference when he said that. I was just like, yeah, makes sense.
It was a glorious moment, and it was so amazing to see. I wish they got the full clip, but finding that clip is actually a pain in the ass. And but it is on TikTok. But it was glorious to watch, and he was so like effective with his speech. There's no ums, there's no buts. He just knows how to speak publicly and knows how to get his point across. And love that.
Yeah, when he was on the panel, he just was consecutively delivering just piece after piece after mention, and just no wonder he's in comedy. No wonder he's like performed so well, and he like. No wonder his line previously hit so hard to some people, but so at the same time, the way he delivers, it's just
he attacked Bridget McKenzie for making the comment of Christians are persecuted in this country, and it's just like, in this country? No, not in Australia.
No, in Australia.
In other countries. Yes, the Middle East, China, countries where it is illegal or difficult to be trans. Yes, you can be persecuted for that currently. Not in Australia.
In Australia, you are so protected in your right of faith that it is already covered completely under the anti-discrimination legislation, and there is really no other means to dive deeper than that.
I want to go back to this, which is the the anti-discrimination laws, because if we go through this, we see that Western Australia has some like coverage against discrimination for trans folks, not non-binary. Queensland, not non-binary. New South Wales, not non-binary. But everyone else is pretty much covered. Now, this is an old bill, so this one might have changed recently. But this page is updated in April, so... But if we go down, intersex people covered by discrimination, not in New South Wales, maybe in Queensland, not in Western Australia. Are LGBT people protected against discrimination by religious organizations? Largely, there's a hell of a lot of red in that. Some where they're covered by only in aged care, only as teachers, or mostly. Actually, going back to the point that CFC made, trans ideology when it comes to Christianity and the fact that God isn't infallible, I would disagree with that. Because I heard a podcast from a group called the Dallas Theological Seminary, which basically argued for trans people as Christians because of the fall of man at the end of like Genesis, in Genesis, where Adam ate the fruit. They got an understanding of what was right and what was wrong. So that's where that, and it messes up with what God's original plan was. Personal perspective, whatever. Men drag is art and that's all. It has nothing to do with gender identity. Straight up. Fully agree with you there.
Wasn't the eating of the apple also coincide like with the ability to identify as self, like their like Adam and Eve's own self-realization?
Yeah.
There it is. That's literally it. That is the trans experience as well. It is self-realization. It is self-acceptance and understanding of who you are.
But additional to that, like, if we just want to look at it from the Christian perspective, we let the devil into it. That was it. What's your opinion on certain job ranks inside of an organization being not possible to obtain? Oh, schools? I know of schools locally that are like that. Or particularly, I know of people who have been sacked from schools local to me because they refused to sign a statement of faith. They were working for a religious school. They couldn't sign the statement of faith because the school changed their statement of faith, made all teachers sign it, but they changed it so that they included the definition of marriage as only between a man and a woman. This was before the same-sex marriage plebiscite. The staff member, being a teacher, refused to sign it because she sided with the students. She got fired. I know of other schools that have similar circumstances where if they aren't Catholic, they have no chance at leadership within that school. If they're not Catholic. So that's a concern as well. So if you're queer, you have no shot either. There was a letter that went around a few years back in New South Wales with that topic in question, wasn't there? Monica?
I'll take that on notice. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
To all religious schools, yeah. So
I remember there has been a continuous discussion like around, because there are still
Ellie's question,
like schools in Sydney area as well who are like constantly pushing back against the queer students and queer teachers as well. It is an ongoing issue.
there was that case out of Queensland in the last couple of years where they basically said we won't recognize your gender identity, and then the entire student body basically protested. They changed
Yeah.
it. They changed it.
Hmm.
City Point.
They were not happy about that, from memory.
Yeah, like this is this entire thing. City Point was a school in Queensland. That got absolutely smashed on just that problem, right? Where the students weren't allowed to be trans. They were only going to be enrolled by their gender assigned at birth. It was never allowed to be updated. And basically the entire student body, several teachers and parents turned around and said, fuck off.
No. Said no, fuck you.
Some students left the school in protest because their parents said no. I disagree with that. The children should be affirmed. I know of male-only schools, single-sex schools, that will allow a trans female student because they were enrolled there at the time and they transitioned while being there. So they were allowed to transition. Single-sex female student schools that allowed the other way around. We unfortunately lost one of them to suicide a couple of years ago, who was known to me. It was shortly after I joined a particular moderation group, we got a message saying that this moderator had committed suicide. It was really sad to see. This is relevant to a lot of organizations that surround organized religion. Seventh-day Adventist is the one I'm thinking about. Please ask for permission before you post that, but I will repost that. So, yeah, the Seventh-day Adventist is rough, for sure. This was in 2018. No, I'm talking earlier than this. And I'm not in Sydney, so this wasn't me. Like, this isn't the one I'm thinking of. But yeah, 2018 was 2 years after the same-sex marriage plebiscite. So, yeah, quite a rough thing to see. The letter, it revealed 34 Anglican schools in Sydney had written a letter to the Federal Education Minister asking to preserve a clause in the Sex Discrimination Act that allowed religious schools to discriminate on the basis of sexuality and gender. Now, that's for students. As it currently stands, for students, there is no coverage in the Commonwealth, in New South Wales, Western Australia, and probably not in South Australia either. This is from April this year. Now, for teachers, it's the same thing. Queensland has a don't ask, don't tell policy, and South Australia has procedural requirements about that. Is allowed to discriminate against LGBT teachers and other staff. However, this right is subject to procedural requirements, including that the school must have a written policy outlining its discriminatory policy, which is provided to people interviewed for or offered employment. So, yeah. But now, second paragraph, yeah. It happens a lot in schools in particular. I wouldn't be surprised if it would happen in certain hospitals, because there are some hospitals that are religious. I disagree with that from the perspective of health. But I fully agree that it does happen a lot with schools and other religious organizations. And then we see groups like Leichhardt Uniting Church that are just like, fuck off. Uniting Church LGBT Twitter. Because Leichhardt Uniting Church, it's a church. I didn't even need to scroll. And this shows up.
You don't have to go far.
This is their second post. basically saying we are showing affirmation for these students and teachers, for staff and community. This is a church in Sydney. I mean, okay, it's the inner west, but like I've been past this church in Sydney before on a trip up to Sydney, and I just looked at it and just said thank you to them, because this is incredible to see from a church.
The same goes with the Evangeline Church on Pitt Street, I think it is, in the city. The protest walked past it the other day.
That's right, you had a massive trans rights protest the other day. That was great to see.
Yeah, we did. That was fun.
I don't get to go to any of these because I don't live in Melbourne.
Oh,
I don't get to go to any of these without writing off a day.
I wasn't able to get out to the protests for Trans Visibility because I did my meniscus. So like I couldn't walk for a good month, probably. But I was able to get out to that one, and it was such a surreal moment because they all Pride and Protest had also organized petition signatures like to be put down like via paper. Like they were walking up to people, they had the petition that I was going, and it was just so surreal to see that on paper form and to actually have signatures. And for like one of like, because like the girl approached me, like another trans femme, and was like, "Hey, sign for trans rights," and I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And I read it, I was just like, "That's my petition." I wrote that.
Love that.
I was just like, because I was like, I know that petition's going at the moment for self ID. Wait a minute. I'm like, I literally like looked at it. I was just like, "Oh no, I wrote this." And she was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I wrote this," and brought up my phone. I was just like, "See, that's me."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, this is wild. You don't have to sign it then." It's like, yeah, I was like, that was a surreal experience. But yeah, it was a incredibly successful protest that we did have. We had a great turnout. It was around like 400 people. The speakers as well were incredibly, like, they were so well versed and so passionate about the situation, and there was such diversity and inclusion. So there were.
Here's actually a question for you. This one I copped feedback for at work because we did a trans panel at work for something. Did you have a trans guy talk and a non-binary person?
Yeah, so we had one of the councillors on the NOS Council is non-binary themselves.
Love that.
Liz Atkins. So they were the secondary speaker. A member of the 78ers, who was a trans woman, spoke as well, and then a trans man who was also a drag king as well got up and performed too and spoke. There was then a drag queen who spoke and another non-binary person. So it was literally coming from
I love
coming
that.
from the source, coming from the mouth.
You're putting your money where your mouth was for diversity.
That it really was. You couldn't get past it, to be honest.
When we were discussing this at work, we got feedback because the entire panel was trans women. Now, I work in a tech company. We're a reasonably large company. We're not terribly huge. A couple of thousand across the country. We're not like Coles or Woolworths.
Yeah, not massive, but still, that's a good significant amount of people.
Yeah, and we just didn't know of anyone that was a trans guy to speak, which was a big shortfall of ours, and we have taken that into consideration for whenever we do another panel. It has happened again since then, but it was something that I acknowledged really early on in the panel, basically going, we understand.
Was it just not having a trans man who worked within the company itself, or
we probably have one that works within the company. We're just not aware of who they are.
Okay.
And we're not going to ask HR to out them to us.
Oh no, absolutely not.
They need to we need to come across them, and we need to basically get them on board.
Or they need to approach you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a big challenge of ours.
Yeah. Or just finding a spokesperson.
Yeah. Like I end up in company stuff a lot. Pathan, I am a trans woman. My pronouns are she, her. I was originally assigned male at birth, but changed that marker a couple of years ago. So we're talking trans rights in Australia, covering all kinds of issues from self-ID, healthcare, surgery costs, all of that kind of thing. Actually, speaking of surgery, the whole thing about how many surgeons do we have in the country?
Or
For bottom
SRS?
surgery, it's sweet FA. I think 4, maybe 5. 1, 2, 3, 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from a really rough cough. I had, I think, bronchitis. But also, Pathan, be very careful what you say, because you are very close to being removed at this point. I am sorry, but we do need to keep this as a welcome space for everybody. But yeah, like for bottom surgery in the country for trans women, 3, maybe 4 that I'm aware of. Gideon Belcher, Cheng Lo, Kieran Hart, maybe Peter Hartz in Sydney, maybe.
Yeah, he's kind of a if or but situation.
Yeah.
I don't
After
think
that-
he's necessarily practicing it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
He's out of Westmead at the moment, but
Isn't he also out of Concord?
well, it definitely could have changed within the last 2 years, or the last I
Pulled it
got
up the
updated
other day
was he
when
was
we were
out
having
of.
our chat.
Yeah, hold on, I didn't follow up on that. He's between either one. I'm just gonna say, but he's within the area of Concord and Westmead, so they're very close. Where is?
So the people that Ives was training are Cheng Lo and Gideon Belcher. Cheng Lo couldn't do depth because he didn't have somebody that could do pelvic floor, and Gideon Belcher, I don't know much about that. A lot of people are going to Thailand at this point, but if you're going to Thailand, do the due diligence and find a surgeon that is reputable, because it's not cheaper. It's about the same cost as it is in Australia to get it done in Thailand. The surgery cost in Australia is what, 25 grand to 30 grand right now? For trans men, I don't even want to know. It's a lot. It could be up to $100,000 just to get bottom surgery if you want it, which is why, because it's not possible to obtain, a lot of people don't get it. So, because trying to afford $100,000 is not going to happen. Plus, there's only one surgeon. He's in Brisbane. Moving on, we have chest surgery, breast augmentation, and double mastectomy, depending on which way you're trying to change your body, feminization or masculinization. Easier. Still can cost you anywhere from 18 to 20,000, or 8 to 20,000, I think, is what double mastectomy can be. Plus, I think that's the same costs for breast augmentation.
Fun fact: in New South Wales, a double mastectomy is considered viable enough for allowing a trans man to change their gender marker, but breast augmentation is not.
Rude. Very rude. So yeah, that's unfortunately something that we've got to consider. VFS and VMS, someone was asking about that today, which is vocal feminization and vocal masculinization surgery. We didn't have an answer for them for VMS. For masculinization, we did not have an answer for them. I don't know anyone that does it in Australia. Astralilium, thank you for the donation. I really appreciate that. That brings us to $100 for Transcend. So,
Hell yeah, congrats.
description about the charity there. And welcome to the stream. But VFS, we can get that done. Trying to find a surgeon that will do it is a bit of a challenge, but it can be done in Australia. FFS, facial feminization surgery, is a challenge to find, and that can run you up to $50,000. I think I had a quote. I was looking at a quote for somebody who had it done with Facial Team. 54,000 plus flights to Spain. So, unfortunately, that's one that, while I've heard that you can get it done in Australia, finding someone that can do it is a problem. But
yeah, that's that's the other major issue. If you have the entirety of the nation of trans people going to only a handful of doctors to have these surgeries without having to go overseas, if you're just trying to keep it within Australian borders, it is so difficult. The wait list, the waiting, the period, the costs, the ongoing involvement with it as well, it's all just, at this point in time, unnecessary. There is demand, but also there is just not the people involved to do it, because...
Which is the problem that we have with when it comes to cost. It's not covered by Medicare because everyone that does the surgery is private. Every single surgeon that does that kind of surgery is private practice. If you can get a rebate, it will not cover you. Not even remotely close. Like I said, when I was covering my costs, $25,000 out of pocket. $22,000 is what I ended up paying because I got $3,000 back. And that's with top level private health and Medicare combined. And I didn't have to pay another $14,300 in hospital stay fees. Because again, private hospital. It was exceptionally expensive. But I had the money for it. Most people don't.
I will say it right now, I do not have the money for it. That's part and parcel.
Even if you get paid exceptionally well, you're making the choice between a house or surgery. I'm 30 years old. And a lot of my friends are going out and they're buying a house and they're building and they're living their best lives. And I paid for surgery instead. My surgery costs are a home loan deposit. And I spent it on something else. That being said, I'm not saying I'm not living my best life. Absolutely am. But that was the problem that I had to spend. To live my life the way I want. So, yeah.
Which is good. We validate that. We support that. And like we said, I've already said multiple times, like people, it is so incredibly costly, time consuming and traumatic as well to have gone through that. And like even for yourself, you would have been in and out constantly all the time, trying to organize these He's going between appointments, getting the funds together, going on to the next step, and the documents. How'd you go with all the documents?
I had to do my name. I had to change my name. So, actually, funny story about that. Changing documents. I work for a very interesting client. I can't really say what I do.
You don't have to.
But when I transitioned back in 2019, I asked my company, hey, I want to change my... I'm coming out as transgender. As such, I've chosen a new name and I would like to go by that. And basically, I got to a point... I told my manager I was transitioning probably this year in January. Hadn't started hormones, didn't know the process. Started hormones in May. And then about halfway through July, I sat down with my manager and said, I want to come out in the next couple of weeks because I'm growing a chest and I can't hide it. My cisgender friends were very dense because they are like, I have close friends that I work with that had no idea that I was growing a chest. They didn't see it until I pointed it out to them. It was hilarious to see the guy's response. Because I work in tech, right? So it's a very male-dominated field. You would have expected them to notice. They did not. So I sat down with my manager. My manager actually said, please don't come out now. I need to go and contact the diversity and inclusion lead. And we will organize a plan for you to come out. They sat me down with the diversity and inclusion lead, and they actually brought training in to my office to run diversity and inclusion training for trans folks to my colleagues in the office. I got told to go home for 2 days while they were running that training. So I got sent home. They sat me down and said, all right, so the site manager is going to send an email to everyone in the building, plus everyone that's on your client contract, because there are people on that contract that are not in my city. They're in Melbourne, they're in Canberra, they're in Sydney. So we need to go and we need to loop them in as well because you may have interactions with them. Then when you're done, then when I'm done, send out an email yourself explaining the whole story. We've already read your email. We think that's an appropriate email. I sent out that email and then but part of the site manager's email was, hey, while we're at it, we're also doing training. We have training in the office today and tomorrow. This was a Monday and a Tuesday. And they will come back on Wednesday as their affirmed self. So I came in having... So I sent the email on Monday. They did all this training, and then they did the training in Melbourne for our Melbourne, Canberra, and Sydney crew to dial into, which was really cool. So everyone got an opportunity to attend that training. And they actually brought it to the client site because that's where a lot of our Melbourne and Sydney and Canberra staff are. So that was really cool. Then I came back on Wednesday, and the first thing I noticed was that my name tag on my desk had been updated. It was already my new name as Abigail.
That's so sweet.
Loved that. While I was gone, the diversity and inclusion lead updated my name in all of my company's systems. So when I came back in, my email handle had changed. It was no longer my old name. My name was changed basically everywhere that was publicly visible across all systems. The workplace directory, the workplace Slack, everywhere was my new name. Except the client system. I've told you this, Monica, when we had our chat over the weekend. My client system couldn't update my name on their end until I had updated it legally due to a security requirement. So I had the gay guy of the office come up to me a couple of weeks later. Now, it's August, right? When I came out. In August, towards the end of the month, I wanted to come out to family and friends, and I got told no because your great-grandmother had just passed away. Fine, whatever. I'll put the brakes on and I'll come out in a couple of weeks. That was the last time I wore a suit, was that funeral. Rick, thank you for the follow. I then changed my detail. So the gay guy walks up and goes, I can't find you in the client system. I need to send you an invite to this meeting, but I can't find you. Where can I find you? Like, what's your email address? I'm just like, my email address is my old name. Why? Why is it your old name? That makes no sense. It's like, because it's not my legal name. Why is it your legal name? I can't afford it. I can't afford it right now. Give me a couple of weeks to a couple of months, and I'll get it done. But I couldn't get it done. I got it done, and then it was actually really funny because I put the paperwork in. You don't mind me ranting like this, do you, Monica?
No, go on, please.
I'm gonna now tell the PAX story.
Remember, because I did rant about my situation like earlier on as well. So
yeah. So I put in the paperwork, and I was watching the birth certificate track through the system, and it had been shipped to come back to me. And it was in the post, and I had no idea where it was. But this is the week before PAX, Penny Arcade Expo in Melbourne. I'm an enforcer for PAX. I'm show staff. I'd already asked PAX enforcer management, hey, I go by my old, my username of Clarkinator. And I think that's a little bit too masculine, so I want to change it. But I'll go by Clarkinator this year, and I'll change it at the end of the show for 2020's show. 2020 never occurred because of the pandemic. But I had all that sorted. The day I was to leave for PAX, my birth certificate arrived. I was already on my way to Melbourne to spend a week in Melbourne because I rock up on the Wednesday. We go through the show, and at the end of the show, I'm sitting down with one of the enforcer managers, and he calls me over and says, hey, you wanted to change your handle at the end of the show. The show's over, so let's do that. I want to show you me doing that in front of you. And he goes and he changes my name from Clarkinator to Abigator, my handle on Twitch. Because all enforcers go by a handle, not their real name, not their legal name, or even their affirmed name. So that was really cool. He changed that in front of me, and then while he's changing it, I'm looking at his screen, and I'm like, while you're there, can you also change my name in the document? Because you know that I'm transgender, you know that I'm transitioning, and he's like, yes, I can. It should theoretically be your legal name, though, because we're getting paid to be at the show. This is the first year that we're getting paid to be there, and I had actually forgotten that I will need to inform the people that are hiring us to be at PAX. Oh yeah, but that is my name. That is my legal name. Since when? My birth certificate is sitting at the post office. I will go home tomorrow, go and pick it up from the post office, and start getting copies certified, getting them certified, and then distributing them to everyone that needs to. I had like 30 different organizations that needed that change of name detail. That was fun. But yeah, my manager got up, gave me a hug at that point. It was really cute.
It's so sweet. I'm so happy about that situation.
It was a really encouraging situation. I then went home and picked up the birth certificate, walked out of the post office, and there's my manager from my actual day job standing outside. And I'm like, I don't work anywhere near here. What are you doing here? And he gave me a lift back to the office to get copies and stuff. So that was cool.
I love that.
Agent Rodman, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. So yeah. When it comes to like there are certain features of like TransAU, actually looking at TransHub to find the next topic. TransHub is missing something that I think is actually an incredibly useful feature for anything trans related, particularly in 2023.
Oh.
Quick exit.
Say again?
A quick exit button.
Now, they used to have that at the top of the screen on mobile. Back in 2020, 2021. And it would allow you to go to like the homepage of Crikey.
There you go.
It was either Crikey or Junkie, either one. And that was always at the top of the screen. And that was on mobile.
So this is the Magistrates Court of Victoria. They have a quick exit button.
Oh, they do too. That's actually really good.
It's a court system. They kind of need it because if you're going to court, all kinds of things can be wrong.
Yeah, if you need to get out of that, you need to get out.
Domestic violence situations, otherwise particularly violent situations. That's all good. Tiff Twinkle, thank you for popping by.
Thanks, Tiff. Bye.
I had to deal with the court system and going through all of this. There is not a quick exit even on desktop, men. When I create TransAU, I'm just gonna. Oh, I can't get rid of that.
Yeah. It used to be there, but now it's just gone. I might contact them and ask them about that.
That'd be good because I can't really contact them at all.
Do they have it? They do.
So this is my admin portal, but I've got maps. I've got a safety exit. So if I go back to TransAU and I go to visit site, it's very bare bones. I need to find someone that can help me with graphics because holy shit, it looks awful. But there's a quick exit button down here that'll just go to Google or Wikipedia or something. So, and I did that entirely because of the courts. That being said, the only reason why I built it, I only was aware of the court system was because of a situation that I went through in 2020. In terms of discrimination, I have been on the receiving end. If you don't have access to a contact, I can see if works for a company adjacent to ACON. I think I have an email for the ACON team directly responsible for TransHub. I reached out to them and asked them about what they were doing for trying to create a national version. They said they were going to start next month, and they were going to take 18 months to do something. So I'll see if I can actually find that email just quickly. Thanks for getting in contact. Yes, you have heard right. We have been funded for a national update for TransHub. We are going to partner with each state and territory LGBTQ plus organization so that it's co-produced with and by the trans people across Australia for localized peer-based information. It will be an 18-month project. The doctor list is actually going to change as managing this list, and community feedback is very time-consuming. And we are investing in a redevelopment of what that could be. We have had staff changes the last few months so we'll begin this project in July. So I can send your contact details to our new trans health equity team members to organize a meeting with you so that we can support your endeavors once the new team has capacity. Exciting that you're creating your own version of a digital hub for trans and gender diverse people. All the best. And that came from Acon. That's an Acon email. So that was really cool. That being said, Trans AU is a big project and I can't do it alone. If anyone wants to help, please reach out. I do need someone to help with images and stuff like that and graphics because I'm hopeless. But yeah, we've got a whole thing. I've got stuff to put in maps. I've got all kinds of stuff that I need to get done, but I just haven't had the time yet. So we're going to get on to that next week when I've got some time off. Yeah, Ellie, I know where to contact you. But yeah, the other court rant.
Courts.
Situation there with discrimination and stuff. I was 8 months on hormones. I was not particularly passing well. My hair was significantly shorter, having come from a particularly masculine haircut. I'll see if I can find the photo, actually. I have a photo of Randy somewhere. But basically what ended up happening was in 2020, I was assaulted for being trans because I went to a local McDonald's. This may not sign in. Yeah, I didn't think so. Physical security keys. So that's what I looked like at the time. I'm 8 months on hormones. My chest isn't really developed. And I was having problems with it. I was fresh out of a trans support clinic meeting. And I walked into the local Macca's to get some food and then go home. I got my food, sat down, ate my food, and while I was eating, a woman walked in and was particularly pissed off with someone at staff calling them all kinds of names under the sun. I need to make another order because I need to go and get food for my brother. I never got that food because I'm standing there waiting for my order and I've had enough. I used to work in a McDonald's. I'm not about to stand by and abide someone being shit to a McDonald's staff member. They can fuck off. I've had it. I'm calling it. They make some comment about the staff member being rude, and I'm like, the only person being rude here is you. All I said. They spun, and they attacked me for it, verbally first. And then as they walked away, making some comment about dick and, like, I can see your dick and balls, all of that kind of bullshit. It was horrific, but they picked my gender to attack me on.
Essentially a horrible person who had no other argument that they into defending that they were being a piece of shit to then spiral into attacking someone because of their gender. And then getting super personal and being the most abusive piece of shit you can be.
As they went to walk away, they swung a shot. They swung their fist and put it below the belt. As an FYI, if there was video evidence of that, it would have gone down as sexual assault, but they couldn't prove it because there wasn't an angle. It happened in a Macca's, so there's video footage everywhere, but there wasn't an angle of that shot. I tripped them and then they basically tried to physically assault me because I'm retreating into my backpack. My hands are locked up here. I can't do anything with them. When someone hit me, my first response was to lash out. How do I lash out without using my hands? I lashed out with my feet and I tripped the woman. Oh, she went nuts. I ended up being dragged behind the kitchen, the front counter, and the police were called.
Good lord. Did they leave, or were they just?
Oh, they were being
still
dragged
there?
out by friends. Their friends were not supportive of this woman, and just wanted to be gone.
Mm.
It took them a year to charge.
God.
2 weeks shy of a year because of the pandemic.
The court system is so.
No. That's not even the court system. It hasn't gotten to court yet. It's still in the police's jurisdiction. They were dealing with that for a year. Because, like, you got to remember that a lot of the police here had to deal with stuff like the Ring of Steel around Melbourne. Where I don't live in Melbourne, I wasn't allowed to go to Melbourne, and Melbourne wasn't allowed to come out.
You couldn't do a thing.
So the police were positioned around Melbourne in strategic spots, and that included the investigating officer in my case. The case was referred to SOCIT, so Sexual Offences and Child Abuse Team, or Child Investigative Service team. It was referred to them. They originally told me that it was going to get pulled for sexual assault. In the end, it got common assault and behaving in an offensive manner. $1,000 fine, but a conviction nonetheless. The case started February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2020, and it ran until November last year. It took a year to charge, and it took a year and a half to go to court. To go to court and wrap up. Eventually, they ended up combining 2 cases and pinging her for both simultaneously.
That's not too bad.
She's known to the police, apparently. So,
that makes sense.
apparently, someone spat on a Woolworths employee, and they got a good behaviour bond.
Good
That was
lord.
it. So, $1,000 fine is better than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was an actual punishment there. But I'm not fearful for my life. I'm not fearful for that happening again at the moment. I don't live in Melbourne, and I'm not surrounded by Nazis, though. There are other trans people that do have that concern, because that's what's around them. I had heard recently that in Victoria, for Ida Hobbit, International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia, every council in the state of Victoria raised a rainbow or progress flag. Cool. Love that.
Love it. Great. Thanks for the help.
We're trying to get LGBTQIA plus advisory committees on each council. Melton just turned around and said, fuck off. We're not doing any advisory councils until November next year. The justification that they gave was some bullshit.
Wait, what was it? Was it?
I'll see if I can find the Twitter account. Sean Mulcahy. That's not Sean Mulcahy. No, this is the Sean Mulcahy I want. No, this is the Sean Mulcahy I want. Oh, that one is. So, Sean works for Rainbow Local Government as a campaigner. Where's the one about... another LGBTQIA plus councillor has just been elected into the Council of Geelong. Here we go. Council has voted to ban the creation of any new community advisory committees until November 2024. And why? Because they are concerned that LGBTQIA plus people might get on the advisory committee and then run for council. Seriously? That's your justification?
That's a little bias.
That's
That's a
bullshit.
little homophobic. That's really fucked up.
Sean was part of my leadership course, and that's why I'm following him.
When you're trying to fight for inclusion and fight for rights, and then they're just like, oh wait, we can do things here and there, but we are going to deny you complete access to actual powers of change.
Yeah, it was.
We're going to deny. You want to be a politician? Guess what? No.
If you look at we don't really have trans. We don't have a trans, I don't think, state parliament member anywhere in the country, let alone federal.
Oh.
We do have them in local governments. I know that there's a non-binary person in at least Geelong. I have considered running for council, but haven't actually considered it properly. So, yeah. That's unfortunately parts of what we have to deal with.
That's part of our life.
Oh, hang on. I just realized I didn't actually show you that because... So this is the Sean tweet. Very disappointing news out of Melton Council. Council has voted to ban any new community advisory committees until November 2024. Because I believe... it's a month after the next election.
That is
dicks.
That is probably the reason why the current council probably wants to maintain their ability. So, if for example they, all right, scenario, they said they would start these advisory boards. They said they would. They start to implement them. Election comes around. There's changes. Next council comes through and just goes, no. And then the current one will just say, oh, they wasted all that money and got nothing done, blah, 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 blah. It's a waste of funds, blah, 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 blah. All to cover up their homophobia.
Yeah. So...
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
And that same thinking also does apply to state and federal levels as well. It's oh, we'll do this for... I get the feeling it's what's happening currently with the Labour government as well. They're putting a lot of their LGBTQIA plus promises on the back burner. And if Labour government is voted in for a second term, I feel like that's when they would actually start to make more progress on it as well.
At a federal level, maybe.
At a federal level, maybe. But also,
it's less of a problem in states because of all the states except for New South Wales, which needs to catch up. We're already pushing for... We've already got these changes. Self-ID became law in Victoria in 2021. In Queensland, just the other day. It's already a thing in every other state.
Tasmania, ATC. Like, ATC, what was 2018,
ACT,
2016?
ACT is always one of the earliest states to do anything supportive. Because if you look at ACT tried to legalize weed at one point.
I love that.
It got overturned, but because they're a territory and they are beholden to the feds. And this was under, I think, Scott Morrison. Peter Dutton turned around and said no.
I'm not surprised about that.
But they still had fireworks that were legal in ACT for the longest time. They had so many things that were just legal in the ACT. They tried to legalize same-sex marriage before the plebiscite. Again, that got overturned. Because they were just like, if you're not going to do it, we'll do it. And that got overturned under Malcolm Turnbull before the plebiscite. So that was unfortunate. But that's what we see. Right? Like, we have policies like this all over the place. Also, I do love that in Victoria, like, whenever the trans community is under attack, the next day we look at Parliament in Victoria and Dan Andrews is getting up there going, what the fuck is this? This is abhorrent, and I vehemently stand against this. He has.
Am I going to do anything? No.
It's under his government that we've gotten self-ID and stuff like that through, and the conversion therapy ban and all of that. So he has done stuff. He has bipartisan support to ban the Sieg Heil,
which is good.
The Moira Deeming incident that happened in the Liberal Party in Victoria. We have Liberal support. What the hell? But
it's I would say in the grand scheme of things, compared to the rest of Australia, there's been more work done for trans rights and like to affirm our identities and genders in Victoria than any other state at this present time or territory, which is great.
Except maybe ACT.
Except maybe ACT. So like
intersex surgery bans and stuff like that.
Like those two spots, fantastic, massively progressive. We love to see that, but it does need to be consistent as well. Like,
sure.
For that to take effect in New South. See, this is what I don't understand. Okay, we have. Yeah, I understand the differences in state changes in state legislation when it comes down to it completely. But a lot of the changes that are then implemented into legislative change, such as like for self-IDs, all has the very same similar wording. But one thing I've been starting to notice as well, that one state can't reference another state's legislation and needs to do their own independent review to get a similar outcome.
Yes.
So, which is highly, highly annoying. While Victoria and Queensland will have had success in changing laws around self-ID and everything, New South Wales, and I've heard it directly from Joe Halen as well, who is the current Transport Minister for New South Wales for Labor. Because I went up and asked her myself when like the election was happening. I was like, hey, look. Because it was in the middle of like all the hate going down in Sydney. And I was like, look, I'm a trans person. We have a lot of issues going on at the moment. Victoria's already done this for self ID. Queensland's ahead of us and is on track to pass it. What would you? And I was basically just asking, what would you and what would Labor be doing moving forward? I know that, and I've mentioned like the unanimous motion previously, the equality bill that's in the works, and again, they gave the typical Labor response. Well, for New South Wales, being like, we would have to have it independently reviewed and get advice on it, which is basically just political for like, we haven't made our mind up yet on that, and we're not going to make a choice yet. Annoying, yes, but to hear it directly from her is just like, okay, look, nothing's going to get done at this point in time.
Yeah.
Until something gets shoved in their face. So between protesting,
Petition and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, between protesting constantly, garnishing signatures on multiple petitions and forms, and just having those statistics there behind it, along with like the rise in hate, like hateful events, administrative challenges as well within companies, businesses, and whatnot that also are pushing for it, and then legislative bills being put forward and motions being carried. That is the current triangle we're looking at to solve our current plight in New South Wales that we have to get through.
Yeah.
Internally, I do feel like it's going to be a good long struggle, and we won't have any action of the equality bill until later on this year, if not early next year.
Sure, it's going to take some time. I think we don't have a current version of this bill from Alex.
No.
He's announced that he's doing it, but I emailed Alex this last week and got a response. It's not ready. They can't even release a draft of the bill.
Yeah. They're putting it forward. They have their ideas. They just need to put it down into writing, into legislative writing, and that's the hardest point.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really sad that that's the case. I remember when they were banning conversion therapy in Victoria. I actually watched that live, try to get past. It was a late session. It was 9 o'clock or something like that when they tried to get it through. I was very tired. And I remember, do you know anything about Tavistock v. Bell?
No.
It's not an Australian court case. It's a UK court case. The situation is, there is a person who transitioned in the UK named Kira Bell, who transitioned to male and then detransitioned and basically blamed the Tavistock Gender Clinic for not doing their due diligence. They basically convinced several doctors that they were trans, went through hormone therapy, and then found out that it wasn't for them. Now, at a rate of regret of 1%, if we were to consider that regret rate for anything else, that would be considered a fucking miracle. A knee replacement or a hip replacement is 20% regret rate.
Yeah.
And that's improving your quality of life.
It would be an anomaly in the system. It would raise more questions than answers.
Of those that detransition, 80% of them, or I think, well, I won't say 80% because I don't know the actual statistics, but well more than half detransition for social reasons. Not because they're not trans, but because their family doesn't accept them, their friends don't accept them. It's too hard. So they detransition. They might retransition later on.
I mean, that's essentially what stopped me from beginning my transition, because I thought, like I thought it was never going to be achievable from like when I was like from 2014 onwards, and then I just like compacted that deep down, me like, no, I'll solve my like body dysphoria somewhere else. And that wasn't the solution. And I just bottled up and I just stirred and turned, and then I was like, you know what? I realized that this can be done.
Yeah.
And the only thing holding me back, like even like I figured it all out just during COVID, and then it also
lot of people
took
did.
me. Yeah, it then took me till December, well, August last year to actually start speaking out to friends and to like really really close friends and colleagues at work. And I was so scared to tell my family that I didn't tell them until I was like 100% ready. I knew everything. But still, from there, I waited another 2 months to then, at the start of December, just being like, I'm going hell for leather. I'm so mentally exhausted from constantly juggling, like, my family, what my family's reaction is going to be, what their response is going to be, and it's holding me back from wanting, like, to fulfill this.
Sure.
And so during that time, I was just like, I'm just going to do it. I know that some people do have a scorched barren earth approach to family sometimes. And like, I don't have the best relationship with my brother currently because he's always been misogynistic. He's always been an asshole. He still like screams and like says the N word for fun and thinks it's a cool thing to do and being a thug. Like, he nearly went to prison for like possession. And like, not talking a little money, it was like wheeling and dealing. Would have taught him a lesson, but would have made him like so much worse. But yeah, he's like openly come out to me being transphobic, being shitty, saying trans women don't belong in sports. Trans women, basically just trans people shouldn't be out there and shouldn't be around kids as well. And that was fun because that was
Ask him to justify. If you want it, if you really want to piss him
off. Do you know
off.
what he said? Do you know what he said? He said, "Oh, it's the pedophiles," and I was just like, and then I sent him
Prove it.
four articles. I sent him 4 articles of like of sexual assaults of minors from churches and from other institutions, and send him the statistics of what it actually is in the queer community for like that kind of situation. And he just dismissed it and said, "Nah, you bunch," and just went, "No, a bunch of freaks." I was just like, you just don't want to listen. You just want to scream into the void. You just want to be mad.
You want to hate for the sake of hating.
Yeah. And like, I'm your flesh and blood. And the only thing you've been spewing for the last 6 years is the fact that family means family. And it's the most important thing to you.
Yeah.
And then you just go, "Oh, no, fuck my sibling. Go die." And it's like, well, thanks.
I sat down with my grandparents over the Christmas break of 2020. And I sat down in a bushfire-prone area during the bushfires.
Oof.
And basically said, if you can't use my legal name, I won't talk to you again. They came.
I'm actually like on the verge of doing that with my mum. And it's very hard to accept.
It was actually really interesting because my mum was one of my biggest supporters. Funny story. My mum's parents, and so my parents are separated. They have been for years. I was in primary school when they separated. But hilariously, my mum's parents and my dad go to the same church. Now, I get along well with my dad, who recently called me his daughter in church. In church. And this is the church I grew up in, right? So I was sitting down I was considered a guest in the church. It was great. It was adorable. By somebody that I knew. Because I was part of the young adults group with them before I left the city and moved for uni. But yeah, like, for Dad to call me his daughter was massive. But in July of 2019, I went home to go tell my grandparents, so my mum's parents, hey, I'm trans, my new name will be this. It is happening. I'm already on hormones. You cannot change this. They turned around and went, we'll never use your new name. I was pissed.
Mm-hmm.
I went and had a chat with Dad the next day, sat down with him, chatted for hours. He'd just come back from the UK. We went through all of his photos. He was having great fun. I asked Dad to arrange a conversation with my grandmother on my dad's side. I sat down with her and told her, hey, I'm trans. But he'd already warned them. My aunt came in. My aunt was living at my grandmother's place at the time because my grandmother is quite frail. So my aunt comes in and goes, I have a niece, na 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 na. And I'm like, because I come from a family of 4 kids, all were male. She had 2 sons, and there were no other cousins in the family. Like, there were no other nephews or nieces in the family other than the 4 of us. And all of us were male. So now she's got a niece. She's so happy. She's jumping up and down for joy. Grandma was real chill. It's like, I don't mind. I don't care. Like, you do you.
Be happy.
Be happy. Exactly. And it wasn't... and then I came home for Christmas. And now, at this point, I've changed my name legally. I've gone through all of this. We go out to my grandparents' place on my mum's side for dinner the Monday before Christmas. I don't even get in the fucking door. And I get told, we'll never use your new name. We're in the car ride home, and I'm not talking. I'm on the verge of tears on the car ride home. I'm 6 months on hormones. No, 7 months on hormones. 6-7 months on hormones at this point. I am fragile. And my grandmother just told me that. Oh, we'll never use your new name. I got home, broke into tears, and then ran to my room and just shut the door, slammed the door. Because I couldn't deal.
I'm so
My
sorry.
mum came in, saw me crying, and was like, what happened? And I told her what happened. And Mum flipped her shit. She just... she turns around and goes, oh, they had the audacity to say that and then ask you to fix her computer. Because I work in tech, so I'm the one that gets to fix the computer. I was furious.
No, that's fucking horrible.
What Mum did next? She got drunk that night.
Oh, good.
And sent a very angry text message to her mother. Basically blaming her mother for my response. And was furious. The next morning, Mum's sister walks in. Which is pretty standard. Like, Mum's family will just rock up unannounced. That's pretty standard for that family. My aunt walks in. And goes, what have you done? Mum explains what she did and just went, I'm not taking it back. It It was
Oh my god, I
great.
love that. Mom's sap.
The comment that she made was, if you don't respect her, then you will lose her. You have one niece. No, you have one granddaughter, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You have, like, 15 grandchildren. Was the 4 of us, there's another 3. So 4 plus 3 is 8, plus another 2, plus another 1. So, yeah. She's got 11 grandkids. 1 was female up to that point. And I was pissed. And I had her laptop hostage.
Good. I forgot, like, I've been living at home since 2011. So, like, I'm only home for, like, since then, I've basically only just been home for Christmas. And so when I came out to my mum and the rest of my family, mid-November last year, Mum, like, couldn't get her head around it. She didn't understand. She was just like, oh, why? And I was like, look, this will come in time. Like, just take a moment to process this, but this is my choice and this is how I feel. I then talked to her again, like, and said, like, a month later, like around like December 15th, and just being like, look, and at this point I was like 3 weeks on hormones. So I'd started. So the process was on. We were going and we're not stopping.
I was 5 weeks when I told my grandparents.
Oh, shit. The emotional turmoil of this is insane. Because, like,
I was actually told to start hormones before I told them. Basically as a, you can't stop me.
Yeah, I got that. Well, I didn't get, no one told me that, but I just got that same feeling. Just being like, I'm going. Look, it's already begun. You can't stop it. But I essentially said to her, like, this is what I'm going to do. And she was like, can't I just have my baby boy? I'm one of 3. Can't I just have my baby boy for me with Christmas?
Oh.
And I was like,
can I make a comment on that?
oh, please do.
I have a friend who, when she transitioned, she told her parents, you can either have a dead son or a daughter or a trans daughter. Why can't I have just my regular son? You don't understand. If I don't transition, I will not be around. I will end it. I will commit suicide. And I just went, holy shit. And they tried to make it about themselves. No, you don't get that choice.
Mm-hmm. You do not get that choice. And that's the other thing, like, because I was just like, I love my mom. Not much else I can do about it. I can only, like, some people can't change instantly. Look, I get that. So I gave her the request, the boy for one last month, like one last Christmas, and like, just didn't want to be there in general. I was completely switched off. I was disengaged because, like, I knew what I was putting myself through as well. And then I go back to my birthday. And at this point, I've been living as myself for the last 5 months. And this was great. I rock up and, and I have growth. I have, there's curves. Like, I've gotten shorter. I'm like, my skin is softer. Like, my hair's grown out. Makeup, clothes, dress. Like, I'm living my authentic self. Dead name through the door. Just him the entire time there. tried to be like, bro, sis, mum, could you just
not?
try? Could you not? And could you, more importantly, just try? Like, oh, we'll try. Probably once. Then the next night, when we went out for birthday dinner, which was great, and I was out presenting. I was looking fantastic. I was wearing like my nice sundress that I really, really love, and like my makeup was done well and everything. And we were sitting down, and then the cake came out, and the song started. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. And since Mum's leaving, Mum is just looking around and looking so happy with herself, and then just out of habit, not making an attempt, happy birthday, dear dead name. And you could see me, because the entire night, from the rest of like the friends that we had around as well, it was just Monica. It was Monica. Brothers and sisters were still being shit, but like, and so was Mum. But to have that happen, happy birthday, dear dead name, in front of a whole bunch, like at a pub at my hometown.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and then like with the staff members as well. And then just like looks and just me sinking into like, no, I want to kill myself now. We went home. I went home in silence. I did not engage with anyone else that night. I went out for a good cry, which was good. I had myself a good cry. We then went home that night. I basically went straight to bed. I got up the next morning. Mum was already up. I basically made coffee, and she was like, "Oh, do you need anything, darling?" Blah 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 blah. I was just like, "No, that's all, thank you. No, I'm going to head home now." Because I was just devastated. I was just absolutely devastated. I sent her a message later, just being like, "Thank you for the birthday, but I would really appreciate it if you could just try."
Sure.
And then it just exploded into but it's the old dog new trick, or I can't learn that, or no other family's going through this. And I was just like,
fuck off.
Literally.
Make the effort,
Yeah.
or you will be cut out.
Yeah. Like, I've already cut off all contact from my little brother as well, because I don't want to talk to him anymore.
Straight up.
Like, it got, like, when he last shitty thing he sent to me, what had nothing to do with trans. It was more like, haha, you went to university, and haha, you didn't get a great job straight away. Haha, you got tricked. He's a laborer for a contractor. He doesn't have secure work. He has no skill. And he's got
It's
a
like,
drug conviction against him. So I'm just like, go on.
you're one that can talk? No.
Go on.
Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, literally. Lance Armstrong case.
Lance Armstrong right now going, we're going to talk about fairness in sports because of trans people. And everyone turned around and went, Lance, you're a drug cheat. You don't get to make any comment about fairness in sport.
You got nothing. You have no platform to stand on. But yeah, so like I cut my little and it was basically, and that was the last point. I was just like, yeah, no, you're gone for the rest of my life. If I see you at Christmas, I'm not even going to engage with you.
Yeah.
And like, while I came out to my immediate family, like just the poor response from them, I was just like, I'm not even going to reach out to the rest of my family if they want, like to my extended family, just because like, if they want to know, and because I said this to Mum as well, I said, Mum, if anybody else has any questions, tell them to ask me directly.
They can ask you directly, yeah.
Yeah. And Mum was like, oh, and she started. She sent like a couple of people, like, said, hey, this person wants to talk to you. And like, here's their number. I was like, okay. That stopped after about a week. And then like, because most of my other family lives both in Foster and in Queensland, so I'm just like, sick. Christmas is going to be fun. Let's see what happens. And like, the majority of cousins that I'm aware of are super supportive. The ones that are kind of MIA and just not on social media as well. That's going to be fun and interesting.
I think for me, just after my incident with my grandparents, like it was the Monday before Christmas, we were out at my grandparents' place again for Christmas Day, and I don't think they said a word to me. Mind you, they have been yelled at by my mother at this point. So I sat down with them shortly afterwards and then got evacuated from the city because the fire was on the doorstep. Or it was within about a 50-kilometer range to the city. It was close. We were getting text messages going, leave. If you're a tourist in the area, please leave. And I'm like, I don't need to be here. Adios.
Good boy.
So I just left. My grandparents have made an effort since. At least my nan has. I don't know about my grandfather because I don't really speak to him that much. But Nan, my grandmother, the one that made the comment before I even walked in the door, she's made an effort. Because I got money from her for my birthday that actually had my name on it as Abby, and she made the effort. And that's what I want. That's what I wanted. I wanted them to make an effort.
Yeah.
And they weren't doing that. So I haven't been home. I've been home a couple of times since. I went home in October of 21. I went out for dinner for my mum's birthday. My grandparents were there. I didn't say more than like a couple of sentences to Nan the entire night. And my grandfather didn't say a word to me. Mum called me up and apologized on his behalf because the two of them were fighting and he was taking it out on me.
Oh, what a Pete.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I went home for October. Oh, this would have been, 2020, I think, then. I went home again last October. Again for my mother's birthday. Then I went home at the start of the month. And I actually asked my grandparents if I could go out to their place with a trans friend who was giving me a lift at the time down to the area because I don't drive. I live 5 hours away from them, and everywhere around them you have to drive.
Yeah, there's no public, like out in those kind of places, there's no public transport.
Oh, straight up no. Like it's rural as hell. But I also knew that this trans friend really would have loved to see my grandparents' place because of where it is, the view from it, the way that they've designed the place, everything. And she did. She really enjoyed it. We got scones and stuff while we were out there. It was really cute. But it was on that trip that, like, my dad called me his daughter, and I got to wear a bikini for the first time because we went out to a hot spring in the area.
Oh yeah, congrats.
It's the middle of winter, and I went to a hot spring outside.
That still would have been so sweet though. But like, think of it. It's like, oh,
What a fucking name.
It's like, I'm gonna freeze my tit off. Slim, fat, Fanny.
It was 40 degrees in the water.
Yo, it's 20 degrees in the water, slim, fat, Fanny's flat.
Yeah.
I love that.
Slim Fat, thank you for the follow. But yeah, it was a really affirming trip. I hadn't been home for Christmas. I haven't seen quite a lot of family since 2019 even, sorry. Because in 2020, we were supposed to be in Sydney to go visit my housemate's family for Christmas. We both caught COVID. We had just come back from the Northern Beaches in a trip to Sydney, come back, had a doctor's appointment in Victoria, got locked into isolation as the Northern Beaches outbreak.
Or not to segue and sound like a shitty person for like being selfish, but that's actually a good excuse I might use this year for Christmas.
last year, then 21 happened. We had the family down from Sydney that we were supposed to go see the year before. Last year, we were supposed to go visit family in 2022. Both of us had COVID. We had accommodation booked and everything. We just used that at the start of the month.
The same thing happened to me in 21 as well. Like I was living with my partner at the time. I was in Sydney, like living in Sydney for 6 months, and I was like, "Oh, I need to go home." Oh, COVID.
Reason I've had to advocate for my cousin who came out after. At that point, threaten them. Like, threaten them as a case of, I'm not going to talk to you. We're not going to talk to you if you don't make the effort. Depending on their age.
Yeah. Just say to them, like, if you're being non-compliant, if you're not willing to make an effort, then, like, it goes both ways. Respect goes both ways.
Don't misgender anyone regardless, but respect goes both ways. If you're not willing to make the effort to respect your child, I don't care at that point. Like, don't be an ass.
Mm.
And I am sorry that you have to go through that.
Like, I still feel like I'm in like a super similar situation too, because the thing is, a lot of my cousins and my aunties and uncles who haven't reached out, but clearly well know because I'm quite vocal about being trans on social media.
Yeah.
I've all seen stories, like, because you confuse who sees the stories. And usually, a lot of them all see it. These are my uncles and aunties I grew up with completely. Haven't heard a peep out of them.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I haven't spoken to most of my family since 2019. Since, like, my great-grandmother's funeral in a lot of cases. And a large portion of that is just because, like, they're spread out. They're in Darwin, they're in Canberra, they're in everywhere. And I just haven't had a chance to catch up with them since. But I'll be going home for Christmas. I'll say hi and see what people want to say. But a lot of them will be really supportive, I reckon.
I'm gonna give it a try. We're gonna see how it goes. If Christmas Eve, we're gonna see how Christmas Eve goes, and if Christmas Eve if the vibes are good, we will proceed and we will endure. But if they're not, I will just smoke bomb anyway.
Yeah, I actually have a really funny story.
I don't have to worry about anything from my dad's side at the moment, because, like, we've been pretty much not really in contact with my dad's side of the family for like the last 8 years anyway. But that's a whole other family drama. And they're also like small town conservative Catholics.
Yeah.
So like their daughter, like there was a big fuss around when their daughter left a really small town, Nabiac, and then went to Sydney, lived in Sydney, came out as queer, and then moved back home. And apparently there was
Not surprised. I actually have a really funny story. So I got interviewed by the ABC.
Ooh, how'd that go?
I've been interviewed by the ABC a couple of times, actually. I'm still waiting on an article. It's been more than a week for them to publish, but they haven't gotten back to me about it yet. They wanted it for, like, there was a radio story, and I asked them for details and stuff, and they haven't really reached out. That's fine. So I got interviewed by the ABC back for TDOV or something similar. Like, there was an incident, and that's fine. Slim Filthy, I don't mind. So I got interviewed by the ABC. Now you got to understand, I live 5 hours away from all of my family. I know nobody here. That I'm not related to anybody in this city. That I thought. My grandparents, the ones that were being kind of shit, particularly my grandfather. His cousin has a daughter who lives in my city. Sorry, child. I always get that wrong. They're non-binary. Is married to a lesbian, and that lesbian was in the article with me. I shared the article to Facebook. Mum shared the article. Grandpa's cousin saw it and was just like, "Oh yeah, by the way, the two of you in the article, you're related." What?
What?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. She's your grandfather's cousin's daughter-in-law.
You kind of just like backflipping on the situation, be like, how's it be what?
I'm 5 hours away from home by driving. That doesn't make any sense. I didn't know that I was related to them, but we've been talking a little bit, and we were on really good terms, and they were running my leadership program and all of that, and it was just the weirdest situation. I just laughed so hard. It made no sense, but it was super encouraging. So yeah,
That's really good to hear. Like, it's just like, oh wait, by the way, you have a queer relative. Have fun.
pretty
You know,
much.
just like
That was
you're just
very
like-
much what happened, and I'm like, okay.
they're just like sick, going to their place for Christmas.
I've never even met them. I've never met that cousin. I've never met that family. I have no idea who they are. I only know them through this one connection, and because they're a massive part of the local queer community. And I'm just like, oh, that's cute. I love that. But
Might be a good little rabbit hole to go down.
yeah. But yeah, like coming from the homophobic and like queerphobic part of the family, and then finding that out that it's connected into that part of the family, love that.
Because like where I grew up as well, like it is, you live in a bubble. The entire place is, because it's such a small coastal, it's just a small coastal little town, but it's so entrapped. Everyone's so trapped in just their like carefree, like nothing applies to us way of life.
Yeah.
Because they're living in paradise. But also paradise has nothing to do, and no one likes any of the restaurants that is actually there, because like everyone's just sick and bored of the same thing constantly.
Yeah. I came from a small town that was like that as well. Like,
Yeah, and it's not till you get out of the bubble that you start to realize, oh, I can finally breathe.
yeah, like I moved to a city that, by all accounts, 10% of the city is queer. According to, like, the mayor. That's awesome.
That's sick.
Like, TDOV came around this year, and 300 people rocked up to the flag raising. The most out of any flag raising in the city's history, except one, but that was a major event. But at the same time, like, we looked at what was happening in Melbourne. 200 people rocked up for Posey Parker, Kelly J. Keen's Nazi rally. Let women speak. That they didn't actually let every woman speak at. They rocked up for that, and there was, say, 50 people on her side and 200 on the other. Like the pro-trans crowd was 200 people. A week later, 2,000 people were marching the streets of Melbourne for Trans Day of Visibility.
Yeah.
On a weekday.
Like, you need to, if you were working that day, you'll be like, I'm taking today off. I'm going to go do something good for everyone's sake.
Yeah, if I heard that was happening, I would have been turning around to my manager and going, I'm sorry, but I need to do this.
You thought Taylor Swift tickets were important?
Yeah, I didn't.
I mean, still are.
I didn't put myself through that kind of pain. um,
No, I'm just trying to afford rent. I'm good. I will hold off on Tay Tay.
yeah, like it was really encouraging to see 200 trans protesters, like pro-trans protesters, rocked up during the Nazi rally. 2,000 rocked up a week later.
I love that. I love hearing
Because
that.
the nation saw people throwing Nazi salutes from the steps of Parliament. It was a national story. So a week later, when like Kelly J. Keane is gone, she's racked off and she's speaking around in Sydney and Tasmania and Queensland and getting no traction. And then she rocks up to New Zealand. And they reckon maybe 20 people rocked up in favour of her. There was 2,000 on the other side. The police couldn't defend her.
She was surrounded. She was in a sea of support fucking trans rights and just kick her like bigoted bullshit out, and she left in the end, and I was just so happy. And then she got souped.
Yes, she got souped. She got covered in tomato soup. But my best part about that was the police response. The police took one look at that and went, "What the hell is this?" Like, we can't stop this. There's nothing we can do here. We are outnumbered and outgunned by magnitudes of like tenfold more.
Yeah,
they couldn't do anything.
This is the people versus the establishment in a sort of way. When the police realize, just like, nope, sorry, you either get out of here now or we can't do anything.
And then they go to escort her out. And as they're escorting her out, there's video footage of one of the police officers saying, "Is Wellington going to be like this too?" They didn't let her go to Wellington. They threw her on a plane and sent her home from there, from Auckland. She was never allowed to go to Wellington because she knew the police knew she could not be defended and there was too much risk to stop it. Melbourne seems to be the place to be lately. Lots of heartwarming stuff, and not even on a large scale like that. Some beautiful little pockets of queerness. You're right. I did find it really funny that there was a drag story time recently where the Nazis showed up. And in Victoria, we have this whole thing called the Rainbow Angels program, where if there's an event, you might see a whole bunch of like queer allies that aren't necessarily invited to the event because the event might not be for them. It might be for young people or whatever, but there'll be adults standing around with like giant wings as a, "We will protect you." In my city, it's called Rainbow Strong. They're high-vis vests. They'll stand around the edge. We've got, for the TDOV flag raising, I counted 12 police officers at the event, including the 2 LGBTQIA plus liaison officers, plus another 10, because there were reports that people were going to be shit at the event. Nothing happened. Actually, something happened, but one thing happened. A car went past and yelled a slur as they went past. Police can't do anything. The other thing that happened was it bucketed rain. Thanks God. But we made this whole thing out of that, and it was glorious. It was really encouraging. So, yeah, progress.
Which is good to see.
Yeah, but
like if I had the choice, and I've honestly considered this as well, I would move to like Victoria. I'd move to Melbourne, and I honestly started considering it around January, February, like after Christmas, and like once I'd sorted out my change of name and everything, and I was ready to pack up and go. I was actively looking for jobs. I was looking for apartments, but like financially, I just couldn't make it down there. So I was just like, look, let's see how we go here in New South Wales, and let's see what kind of life we can garnish. Because I still have like, I do have friends that live in Melbourne as well, so like they would be able to help as well, which would be nice. But still, at the same time, just like picking up your life and moving like to another state is challenging.
For sure. It is like I moved 5 hours away. I didn't even leave the state, and it was a challenge. But I had support because I moved here for uni. So it was a clusterfuck at the time too. But yeah, no, Slim Filthy is right. The bingo cards from this year have been wild. And I saw someone get a bingo because of the submarine. Like,
Jesus.
we're seeing literal Nazis. We're seeing widespread discrimination against the trans community.
We're seeing
level
fascism
never
on a
seen
level we
before.
haven't seen, in such a long time. We're seeing history repeat itself on 2 occasions with segmentation and homophobia.
Yeah. LGB drop the T. That whole bullshit. We're seeing so much queer, like particularly transphobia. And a lot of it is just, a lot of what we're seeing in Australia is imported from the US. It's not taking hold nearly as much as we think it is. Actually, I want to see what that petition's like going at the moment. This one. 61,000. They have to more than double that by midnight in 2 hours. It's not happening.
No.
And I think that I was gonna say, I said this to myself at lunchtime. To hit 60,000, I think there's fraud.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are spamming this with fake emails. I reckon if I won't ever see the emails for this, but I reckon there'll be a name signed to this that'll be Mickey Mouse.
Oh, easily. Like,
or a lot of people that do not exist on electoral rolls because they never existed, or there'll be like 30 of the same person.
John F. Kennedy.
Actually, there'll be 3,000 of the same person at this rate.
Yeah.
To hit 60,000, I said at lunchtime at 12:30, has to be fraud. Even if it's not, they've got to get to more than double that by midnight. We had the same amount of time, and we had the same amount of time that they did, and we hit 148,000.
Like, that in itself is such a challenge.
148,000 was a big effort.
Big effort.
And your petition at the moment, 6,860.
Like, the majority of, like, I garnished, what? I think it was 2,500 signatures myself before it was picked up by the support of the Inner West Council, which was amazing. And that was literally just through, like, my own channels and just, like, going into every online forum I could find that was, like, New South Wales related or trans related, and just being like, hey, if you live in New South Wales, sign this petition. And it was just like doing my own grassroots digital marketing campaign to like get this, because that's essentially what it is. It's just, it is a marketing campaign to get the word out there and to have an action taken.
I've still got this petition pinned in Transgender AU right now, and I will leave it up until it closes. So until that happens, like, if you live in New South Wales, please sign this petition. You can find the link for it as part of our pinned posts on r/transgenderau. there's been some falsification. There's some falsification. The amount of people who are passive or indifferent vastly outweighs the people who are actively hostile. The amount of people that they can get to sign a petition, I don't think that they had 53,000 at lunchtime. I think it's fraud. To get to, they added 8,000 signatures since lunchtime. Nah, in 9 hours they've added 6,000.
Especially if it's someone like, for example, someone from Binary, they would be reaching across such a bigoted network of people who probably don't even live in Australia and getting them to sign on as well.
Yeah.
And then just doing it in mass. If you really put your mind to it, you could probably do 100 signatures in an hour.
Oh, the fact that you need to verify these ones by clicking an email, but I don't want to sign that one. I will find another one that's open that I agree with.
I have yet.
I'll
to
sign
take
that.
my-
First name, last name, email address, and then I agree with the terms and conditions. Most people that sign this may not agree with the terms and conditions outright because they aren't aware what they are.
I'm just going to step aside for a moment to go and take my HRT because when I woke up at 5 o'clock, I was like, I'm going to have a coffee, and then I just completely forgot to do so. So I'm going to be right back.
Actually,
Because now I'm behind.
I'm going to wrap up because it's...
Oh, yeah, no, of course.
We
Sorry.
are late.
Oh, my. We are.
We were supposed to wrap up at 9. It is now 9:47. So
I feel like I had a really nice conversation.
thank you for
But yeah,
thank you for joining us. We do need to wrap up. I have to be in the office again tomorrow as day 3. We're being forced back into the office at this point. So the video for this stream will be up on YouTube tomorrow. But otherwise, please, thank you for joining us. Monica, do you want to say where they can find you? I'm assuming it's just Twitter at this point.
So for me, you can find me across the majority of the interwebs as Dragons Are Cats. So that's Twitter, TikTok, Twitch. I also have links to my Instagram as well in the majority of my link tree as well. And the petition is pinned across the board on all of my socials as well. If you can, and if you do live in New South Wales, and if you do see the petition, please do give it a signature. Please do share it, even if it is just opening a conversation to have with friends, family, relatives, or even colleagues, or even just to post up on a forum. Essentially, it's all about, it does all come down to the willingness to share and make and give exposure. Sandstorm, I'm trying to wrap up. Thank you, darling. In the long run, it does come down to the amount of signatures we need to get. And while I'm incredibly happy for our current effort, there is still much more to go. So please do help us by signing and sharing. And I hope that us sharing our stories as well tonight has allowed for a little bit more of a perspective into like what we sometimes go through.
Damn it, but me so.
I would join you on that.
It's not this week, it's next week. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. We will grab all of this and throw it up on YouTube, and I will send out tweets from Abigator TTV and Transgender AU on Twitter. But thank you for joining us. And we are still raising money for Transcend Australia until the end of the month. So that's Friday night's stream will be the end of that. Currently, we've raised $100. It would be great to raise more, particularly as we do come to the end of our financial year. Any donation greater than $2 is tax deductible, so you can write it off on your taxes once tax return season comes around. So, but thank you to Australium for Astralilium. That's how you pronounce that. For the donation of $25 2 hours ago. and to all of the 6 of you that have followed tonight as well. Otherwise, that's going to be it for tonight. I should find somebody to raid, actually. And Thunder Fun, because realistically, I want to raid someone that's queer.
Mm.
There's nobody really else on at this hour. It is very, very late. So, and Thunder Fun.
I'm quiet for Wednesday too. Yes.
Ant is a lovely member of the, or prior member of the Aussie Pride stream team. Before that collapsed back at the start of the year. Unfortunately, unfortunate as that was. But yeah, let's go show Ant some love. And I will catch people on Friday for more hunting through the Australian outback with my brother. Have fun, folks, and I will catch you all later. Bye.
Bye. Have a great night, friends, foes, and familiars.